Welcome, Night Owls, to the Book Club After Dark podcast, an inviting moonlit podcast. I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm Michelle. We break down fantasy, romantasy, and thriller novels.
All things enchanting, intriguing, suspenseful, and maybe a little spicy.
Each episode features intimate discussions on captivating stories, character breakdowns, fan theories, and more. This podcast contains mature themes and discussions that may not be suitable for all audiences. Episodes include explicit language as well as depictions of violence and other intense subject matter. This podcast is rated R for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
And going forward from here, I feel like this might not be necessary, but we're going to do it anyway. This is your spoiler warning. We're about to start our new coverage of Twilight, so it's kind of like in the last 20 years, if you haven't been paying attention to Twilight, this might all be new to you. If that's true, this is definitely your spoiler warning. And if you haven't read the books yet, like Michelle, cough, cough, this is your spoiler warning. So yeah, here we go.
Let's get cozy because the best stories are told after dark.
Tonight's drink of the episode is called Edible Art, which I think we can all guess that is from our first book of Twilight. The cover, of course, has the two hands with the apple being held. And then in Twilight, the first movie, you have Edward catching the apple and saying to Bella, edible art, in the very sort of beginning-ish of Twilight. So we picked that as the title, and this drink is actually made by Cocktails and Screams, which is a downtown Orlando local bar, and it features apple pie moonshine, sour apple, vanilla syrup, cinnamon syrup, apple cider, flaming apples, yes, with real fire, dry ice, and a cinnamon topper, which sounds crazy. The video of this is really cool. It's going to be up on our socials. So excited to show you this drink of the episode. And thank you so much for Cocktails and Screams in downtown Orlando. This is like a Halloween all year round themed bar. It is such a cool location.
It's so fun.
Yeah, and it's like they have like emo night. I mean, it's so like spot on to our millennial theming. It worked. It was a great thing. And they were like, yeah, we'll partner with you. I was like, this is so fucking cool that they're willing to do this. And so if you go to Cocktails and Scream in downtown Orlando and you say, Book Club After Dark set me, you're going to want to order for this particular episode, the Witch's Brew. And they have actually sponsored all of our drinks for this coverage. So all of our drinks for our Twilight episodes are going to be Cocktails and Screams drinks, which I can't tell you how excited I am about those, and wait till you guys see these videos. Michelle and I had a really great experience going out there and checking it out.
It was beautiful. I mean, it's not just a drink. It is literally edible art. Because of the dry ice, it has like this smoky like essence to it, the lighting of the fire. It is a really cool drink. I obviously can't sample any, but according to Danny, they were all delicious.
I took a sip of all of them, yeah.
And I bet you could order them as a mocktail if you want to just have the experience of, the dry ice and the whole like aesthetic. But the bar is amazing. Our bartender she was phenomenal, and it's truly an experience. Highly recommend.
Yeah, it's great. If you haven't checked our socials, Michelle, tell them the great news.
I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
It's been a fun ride. It's been, I can be very honest, it's not been the most fun ride, but it's been a fun ride. We're excited to be here on this roller coaster that has to deal with me being in the bathroom most of the time. But,
congratulations.
That's okay. Thank you.
I'm so excited. It's going to be great. And then our kids will have another kid to play with. I'm so excited. One day, not anytime soon, but yeah, I'm excited for you. And I of course have known for some time, so it's not like that much of a shock to me, but it's probably a shock to some of our listeners. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm so glad things are going well, aside from the morning sickness and all that good stuff. But congratulations.
Okay. It's a part of it, right? Sacrifice and whatnot.
Yes. Okay, so let's immerse ourselves into Forks, Washington. This episode, we're exploring Twilight by Stephenie Meyer, and I have to just tell you that this is going to be a totally different experience. We're doing something totally different with this book series. Why? Because it's a freaking international phenomena that came out 20 years ago. This is such a massive, massive series. We felt the need to cover this differently than we have covered anything else in the past. In this episode, you're going to get a whole book summary. You're going to get the perspective of my perspective as a reread and Michelle's perspective as a first time ever Twilight reader. We're going to talk about the books versus the movies. I'm going to give you a little bit of pop culture information and facts to kind of bring us all the way back to that millennial nostalgia. And this episode, we have an incredible interview with the author of the Unofficial Twilight Cookbook. So stay tuned because we have so much in store in this episode, and I'm really excited that we're doing something different.
Jam-packed with so much fun.
Yeah. And of course, we're wrapping, of course, with our mystery Q&A. Can't forget that. That's
of course.
Quintessential book club after dark. So we'll be bringing that back.
Okay, so let's begin with our summary. So if you've read the books or if you've watched the movies, you kind of know this. But just to give like a broad overview of the entire story of Twilight. Twilight follows Bella Swan, a 17-year-old girl who moves from sunny Phoenix, Arizona to the small, rainy town of Forks, Washington to live with her father, Charlie. At school, she notices the Cullen family, particularly Edward Cullen, who reacts to her with like a strange hostility. Bella, of course, is intrigued by Edward's strange behavior and his inhuman strength, rapid movements, and particularly cold skin, and begins to suspect something supernatural is going on here. Then as Bella navigates school, she digs into the local legends with the help of Jacob Black. In the books, it's more with Jacob. In the movies, is less with Jacob, but still Jacob Black plays a key role in that. And he tells her about the Cold Ones, which are the vampires, essentially the Cullens. Edward saves Bella from a car accident, revealing his supernatural strength. Bella confronts Edward about her suspicions. He confirms he's a vampire. Despite Edward's initial resistance, the two fall deeply in love. Bella learns that Edward and his family, the Cullens, are vegetarian vampires who abstain from drinking human blood. So technically not vegetarians, but, you know, that's their little inside joke. And however, their relationship becomes dangerous when a group of nomadic vampires enters the town, which is James, Victoria, and Laurence. And one of them, James, who is the tracker, becomes obsessed with hunting Bella for sport. And he decides that this is going to be a game of cat and mouse, essentially. A high-stakes escape plan is enacted. Bella is hidden, but James tricks her and lures her to an old ballet studio in Phoenix. The story builds towards a climactic confrontation in which Bella is nearly killed, but Edward saves her. In the aftermath, Bella expresses a strong desire to become a vampire. Girl, you're 17, but okay. And she wants to stay with Edward forever because teenage love. Yeah. And, you know, he saved her. So, of course, but Edward refuses, insists on preserving her humanity because he sees the true hardships of being a vampire. It's not all just sparkly, twinkly lights. And the tension then between Bella's desire and Edward's restraint kind of sets up how the series' ongoing conflict. So this is something that they're going to battle with in New Moon, Eclipse, Breaking Dawn. Right. And that's just like overall cliff notes. Very quick. Short, sweet.
Was that like a 3-minute synopsis? Twilight. Yes. Twilight, book one as a whole. Yes. I think it's essential that we covered that in the sense that the only way that we could be able to talk about the difference between the books and the movies is to give a synopsis of the overall plot and not make assumptions that all of our audience has read it or watched it.
It may have been a while.
And also that it may have been a while, which for me was the case. And I'll be honest with you, like when we decided to cover this, I was like hesitant. I was like, I'm not sure if I want to go back there. I haven't reread Twilight. And it's not like because I disliked it or anything like that. I think I just like didn't occur to me to go back. And I know that that's an anomaly because there's a lot of people who like do every other year full Twilight rereads because it's comforting for them. Kind of in the same vein that like Hunger Games is comforting for me, which I don't know what that says about me. And also,
we live in dystopia.
Yeah, I guess. You know, Harry Potter's comforting for me to do as a reread. I love that story. My husband just took me on a date to go see the Orlando Philharmonic perform Deathly Hallows Part 2, which they here in Orlando Philharmonic, which is really cool. They do a different movie of the series every year, and they play the score while they play the movie. And so your girl had like maybe 1 or 2 glasses of wine, who can tell? And as the characters were like passing away in the movie, they've passed away in real life. And the nostalgia of like remembering that while I'm watching the film, and also the lady that was 2 seats over from me. So if this was you, like, this is shout out to you. She was bawling hysterically. And so like I
Oh,
started to cry. Yeah, she had her daughter with her. She was showing her like the Harry Potter movies for the first time, whatever, having her moment. And
no.
I just could hear these like noises. And I like could not keep that together. And so I was like, I'm right there with you, girl. But anyway, that got me thinking because that was only a couple weeks ago. And that was like when we were starting to first prep and reread Twilight and kind of get into this mode of like covering the series. And it reminded me
Mhm.
of how nostalgic and how different the world was when these books started to release and how much has changed. And I've actually had
Yeah.
a really fun time rereading this. So I'm excited. We're going to talk now about like the plot themes overall for Twilight. And then we're going to get into the differences between, because listen, the differences between the movies and the books, especially with this book in particular. And so as our coverage goes through, we are going to focus like primarily in the one book that we're in, and then we'll kind of move through. Our guests for the interviews are going to bounce around because they had just so much to say about all the different books.
Mhm.
So they'll kind of bounce around, but we'll focus the rest of this episode primarily in book 1, Twilight. And I think there's so much to be said about that one in particular because it was the catalyst. It was the very first, and it was the reason that so many people loved this whole series
Mhm.
and stuck around. So now let's talk about plot themes as far as what we're going to see, which is the romantic tension, of course, is we kind of have a love triangle, not initially in book 1. And it can be argued that maybe a love triangle doesn't exist at all, only for Jacob Black. But there's definitely the argument in book 1. The first thing we see is romantic tension, and that's primarily between Bella and Edward. And so Bella is
Right.
drawn to Edward despite this known mortal risk to her life. And of course, we have like one of the most famous quotes of this entire series, naturally, is about 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire. Second, there was part of him, and I didn't know how potent that part might be, that thirsted for my blood. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. And the way that the fandom has taken this section of the book, these lines, and made
Mhm.
things into them is just, it's featured in the cookbook. I mean, she wrote that in
Mhm.
her
It
essay
is.
when she was talking about like it's known. It's in the movies. It's a super famous line from the first Twilight book. It is just like quintessential young adult romance, and we ate this shit up at this time. It was
Because when
beloved.
you're right. When you're 17, you love with your whole heart. You hate with your whole
Oh,
heart, but you love with your whole heart and you
mm-hmm.
go all in. So like even as like an adult reading this, I'm like, yeah, I've been there. I've been 17 and I've been like head over heels. I can imagine if it was like a twinkly, sparkly thing. So it
Relax.
makes sense. But back to the love triangle, reading the books, she even says she's like, I don't feel anything for Jacob because it was mentioned
No.
a little bit. And she was like, I feel bad because I was kind of flirting with him to get him to give me information.
And it
So
totally worked.
and that
But like she
yeah,
knew
for
that
sure.
even then, even
Right.
in book 1.
He's 15. He's younger than
Yeah.
her. And she's like the cute new thing in Forks because there's nothing there. She's outside the reservation, so she's shiny and new, which obviously she's not new to Jacob, but she's around now. And it makes sense why he's drawn to her, but the love triangle
Mhm.
was pretty dismissed. I feel like I haven't gotten into the next books yet, so I don't know, but I feel like it was a
Oh,
little bit
the
more
ride you're about
hyped
to be on.
up in the movies
Let's just
as a
say that
selling point.
escalates. Let's just say that
Okay.
escalates. And we'll just leave it
Which
at
we
that. And I'm very
okay.
curious, Michelle, because you're on a first read versus me who's on a reread.
Mhm.
I'm so curious how you digest the rest of this series and think about it because you have such a different perspective than I have. So I'm really curious how that's going to like go through your head and what you're going to bring to
We
these
shall see.
episodes.
So next is moral conflict. We have a lot of moral issues with some things, and I have more moral issues with things going on than probably the characters. Edward embodies a traditional Gothic hero, tormented by his nature, which he cannot change. His refusal to make Bella a vampire highlights his more resistance to damning her soul. There's an emphasis like damning your soul here.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't want to change her. She wants to be changed because she loves him so much. And this kind of leads into the beginning of New Moon, right? That, she will
Right.
age, he will not, that whole issue for them. So that's kind of a moral conflict that both of them will battle throughout this book, more heavily emphasized in the end of this book and throughout the series.
Yeah, because I think at the beginning, we're just kind of getting the initial setup, which is very traditionally done in fantasy and especially in series. You have to start somewhere. So while there isn't world building in this to a certain extent, I mean, you have semi world building with like the vampire world and stuff like that. We really don't get that in book one. That kind of like trickles throughout the series. You start to see those different elements expand and develop. I don't want to give too many spoilers for you, Michelle, because I think in the latter books, especially as we get closer to Breaking Dawn, there's a lot of things that are different about character development and characters we get to see more of in the books than we get initially from the films. So I'm curious to see your thoughts on that as we progress. But what we really deal with in Twilight specifically is this coming of age piece and identity. And Bella, for her, while yes, love is a factor, it's established very early on that she's kind of foreign in her own body. She's extremely clumsy. There's so many times that I thought of like Final Destination. I know people are going to be like, what? Reading Twilight? Because Bella in the books, it comes out so much more how she's so close to death so many times. And Edwards is like the difference between how that doesn't happen for her, right? She almost gets hit by the car. She would have died. She almost like not a question if she would have died. Like she would have died. It's illustrated in the movie, but like the real extent of that for the book was like she'd been completely smashed by the car. It wasn't a question. It wasn't like a fender bender. Like she would have died the very first time that they have this interaction. She would have gotten hit by the other car and that would have been it. But he's the difference. So I feel like I was reading a lot of subreddits about this, and there were so many people who were like, oh, well, if the Cullens like didn't come to Forks area, that, she wouldn't have ended up with Edward, and like maybe she'd like the Team Jacob folks, which we haven't even got into that yet, but like they were like in the camp of like, oh yeah, she would have ended up. And I have to say, like she would have ended up with Jacob. And I have to say, like, unequivocally, just to use a quote from Miss Stephenie Meyer, using one of her words, is because it sets it up so early on. And I forgot how clear this is in the books. Like the car accident would have killed her right then. She would have been dead. And then there's several situations after that fact with Everett.
The assault, like she almost got assaulted by a group of guys.
Yeah.
Like there were five of them, four of them. And and Edward intervened there as well.
Yeah.
Her literally existing, she trips over everything.
Well, and then there's several other key moments related to her humanity, which throughout the series occur again. And so I feel like this understanding has been kind of overlooked, especially by the fandom. And I don't know if that's by choice because the fandom's intense. So it's very possible that this is by choice, that the camp of Team Jacob like so desperately had this idea or wanted this to happen that they and we talk about that in when we interview some of our guests that we have on. But there's definitely, I think there's no ambiguity here. I really do feel like Bella and Edward have their own thing, and I'll talk about that more when we go into my reread portion. But for coming of age, this is where we are in Twilight as a whole. The whole series, I wouldn't say is coming of age. I think we get away from that in the latter books, but definitely books 1 and 2, Twilight and New Moon, we're really focusing on coming of age. We're really talking about these teenage elements. So let's transition to narrative style and like the influence on the plot.
So obviously we're getting Bella's perspective, which I do like which we haven't read Midnight Sun yet, but then we do get Edward's perspective. Ultimately, I do like how that we do get that. Obviously, with it's being just Bella's perspective, there is a slight unreliability of a narrator, right? You're getting all of her intense emotions. You get only her perspective, which when a teenager's in love with someone, we look past red flags. We look past flaws because those don't exist in teenage eye when they are in love.
And also in dark romance, which is not part of this, but just saying.
No. Just
and also wrote monster romance, didn't it? Didn't we talk about
Well, it's
Tegan
in
about some of this? Look,
yeah.
off course here.
Well,
I'm getting off
even
course.
like fantasy romantasy. Like think of
Mm-hmm.
all of the ACOTAR books. They're from the main female's perspective. So we look past any of our MMC's flaws because it's only from the female's perspective. And this makes internal conflict, love versus fear, desire and danger. Fear is a big part because that has a play in love. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you love someone, there's the fear of loss here. And that's Bella's has a really deep fear of being without Edward, especially towards the end of the book. And it's almost like it literally shatters her world, which if you have been in love at 17 or even as a teenager at all, that is a valid fear. The whole like because your life becomes that person. And it
Mm-hmm.
happens a lot quicker with Edward and Bella. And I want to say it's because of the book, obviously how it's set up. Obviously the book you get more time. Book starts in
Yes,
January, whereas the movie you're in March and it's like a month's time. But it makes more sense in the book, you know, a
it
couple
does.
of
The
months
pacing makes more
leading up
sense.
to
Yeah.
it. And the events are filtered through Bella's feelings, making even simple actions like conversations very deeply charging. She has a lot of personal thoughts that she internalizes a lot. I would say she's more
Yeah, she
introverted,
does.
obviously. So introverts have a lot going on up here, but they don't say a lot. And obviously getting all those thoughts and feelings out in a movie screen doesn't come
Mm-hmm.
across. So her
Yeah.
character is a lot more dynamic in terms of the book writing versus what was portrayed in the movies
Yeah.
because of her perspective.
Agree.
And then there's foreshadowing series setup. How does this play along into the rest of the series?
Bella's fascination with her mortality and humanity in general continues. And what I mean by humanity is there's a piece of this related to Edward's humanity because Edward, even in book one, talks so much about how he's the villain and how he might not be the good guy. And that's relayed again in the movies, but the obsession with whether he's good or not is something that goes back and forth throughout the book series and throughout Bella's mind. And it's never been wavering for her. She's like, you're it for me. I love you. That's it. There's nothing evil about you. But even with Edward and his family, and when you bring in different elements later in the series, this idea of vampires being good is he just doesn't believe that to be true. And so this reflects in our is there a level of humanity to vampires? What does that look like? What does that mean? And then we have Jacob Black, of course, which in Twilight he has some role. He's definitely a very large side character. I say he becomes a much more main character in later books, specifically in the next book. He's definitely a main character. In Twilight, though, I really don't believe he becomes that main character just yet. He has
Mm-hmm.
the we get a tribal backstory of everything that sets up there. We get a layout of where we're going to go, and then we find out that the Volturi exist, but we really don't understand the full grasp of what's happening there. But I think it's just an initial laying flat that there's more to this world and this story, which is again very typical of a first book in a series. So we get that really early on. Here's our two main people that this story is really going to follow. This is all about them. And here's where this whole story can go. Here's some paths that we can take. And it's very traditional of any type of fantasy or really any series. It doesn't have to be fantasy specific, but any series that you're going to read typically lays out this way because the reader needs to have a base. We need to have somewhere to establish a story from. We need to be hooked into certain characters enough to want to read book 2 and also have like something to cling to in future reads. So I think Stephenie Meyer clearly did a great job doing that. And at the time in the Ya series, like this was just such a different book at that time and people just loved it. So now we're going to get into what I'm really looking forward to because I actually haven't heard this yet. So we've been waiting to talk about it live, like on the show. So I've like, what is Michelle's perspective as a first time reader? And then my perspective, of course, as a reread. So let's do this.
Okay, let's start with characters and let's look at our main characters. So
Okay.
Bella Swan, main character. I actually liked her in the books. I anticipate, because I had only watched the movies, I anticipated like hating her
Oh,
because I thought
okay.
she was very in the movies, she was very stagnant. Her
Yeah.
personality was, yeah, it was flat. So I didn't anticipate the sarcasm that she actually had and the complexity. And she's a book girly also, and that's not really
Yes.
emphasized in the movies either. Like, she loves literature. She reads the classics in her free time. So I actually really enjoyed Bella, even though she likes to look past red flags. She does let a 104-year-old vampire watch her sleep every night, so we look past red flags clearly. But, he's cute, I guess.
I guess. Please.
I guess. I think, which we talked about, how Edward Cullen was, how Stephenie Meyer's Edward Cullen was going to be Henry Cavill. Like, that's who she
Oh, yeah.
dreamed of. And
We were talking about that.
I would have, yeah. So that Edward Cullen, absolutely gorgeous, swoon worthy.
Well, and not only that, but like the Edward Cullen in the books, and we can talk about that more, but like he's supposed to be like really buff. And like not to say that Robert Pattinson doesn't like have a good figure or anything like that, but he's just I don't know, like he's supposed to be like ripped, like pretty jacked. And like that's how she describes him. So I feel like there's differences there, but
he doesn't
overall,
have Robert Pattinson doesn't have like gym rat muscles. He has working muscles, which are, you can be strong and not look ripped. So those are two completely different things. How do you feel, or how did you feel in a reread about Bella Swan?
I remembered that I really liked Bella from the books, and I think gave me a lot more leeway when I watched the movies. And what I mean by that is like I already knew the moments you're talking about her. So I was looking for those in the film. And while Kristen Stewart I can't say she did like a terrible job in my mind, because at this point now that's like defines her whole career is her playing Bella Swan. But I feel like there were parts of her acting that didn't emphasize certain parts of the character for sure. But I think that's always going to be true. I don't know that you can get away from that. I think no matter what they put together, if they followed it scene by scene, I still think there would have been readers who would be disappointed. I don't think you can get away from that. Yeah.
No, because when we picture these characters, we have an idea of like how it's happening in our heads. The directors can never, and the actors can never portray what every single reader is portraying in their heads. Right. So it is an impossible feat, I will say.
Yeah.
So
anytime they convert a book to a movie, the book is almost always going to be better. There are very few instances where that isn't true, but almost always they're going to be better. And I think too, there are elements that they have to cut that are just not going to make the cut of the film, because you're trying to take a massive book and cram it into an hour and a half. And that's just, you're going to have to cut certain parts. You're going to have to take liberties. And specifically with this film, the budget was not there. Book one, fine. But like book one movie, there was no budget. It was shot like an indie film. Like there just wasn't any budget. So as far as the characters and stuff, we have the classmates. One of the things that bothered me about the book versus the movie, and we'll get in more into this, is like one of the characters was omitted. So one of the characters from the book, Lauren, which she doesn't have like a huge role. She wasn't in the movie at all. Yeah.
She like hated Bella.
Yeah. And she was a driver of the story. So I thought it was interesting that of all the characters that they cut out Lauren. And I was like, she was kind of one of the ones that like drove Bella to make certain decisions or react in certain ways. While she wasn't actually present, I was like, you couldn't get one more actress? Like I feel like there's not that many actors to begin with, but like we couldn't get one. Like, I don't know. I just like thought that was an odd choice to cut. And then as far as the characters, I think all of them have their place. Renee, I think Bella's parents really, really frame her to work for Edward. And what I mean by that is like basically took care of herself. By the time she's 17 at this point, she emphasizes how she takes care of Charlie. She cooks for him. She does all these things for him. And
which she doesn't do in the movies.
No,
like
but before
that whole part, so good.
Before that, though, with Renee. And the whole reason Bella even ends up with Charlie is because she's self-sacrificing. A teenager, a 17-year-old, realizes that her mother, the adult in the situation, is going to be happier without her because she just got remarried, and her own daughter removes herself out of the picture to go live with her dad. And the way now, and like that, I want to talk about how
I
that affected me now as a reread versus the first time I read that. And so, like, my
Mhm.
full perspective, full disclosure, I don't speak to my mother in real life. And the reason I don't is because she has a pattern of addiction and a number of other really bad issues that have related to that. So there's a lot of stories there. I won't get into the whole thing, but when I read these books, I was closer to Bella's age as a character. My parents were divorced. I related heavily to the mom who was an absentee. I understood what it felt like to take care of. I lived with a single father growing up, and then, my father got remarried, but at the time while this was all going on, I really understood Bella. I understood what it felt like to be part of a split family at that time period and when this was written, and what that felt like in the isolation of that, and the requirement to be more mature, wiser than your years, because you had to be. You had to step up and fill that
Mhm.
shoe, or, if you weren't, you were essentially going to suffer because of it. And so Bella is so much wiser than a 17-year-old typically would have been. And it works for this story. And it worked for me at the time reading it. And I understood her at the time, because how else is 4-year-old vampire going to be interested in her? But aside from that, I don't think that's the only element here. On a reread, for
Right.
me, I think they're fated mates, man. And I feel like they were fated mates before fated mates was like a thing. And now, having read ACOTAR, having read several other romantasy series, is like, this wasn't a genre at that time, or this wasn't a trope, I should say. Fated mates was not a trope. And
Mhm.
now, in hindsight, reading this again, they're fated mates to me. Like, they check all the fated
Right.
mates initial boxes. I don't know what your thoughts were on those elements.
Well, I haven't read the entire series yet. So
Right.
I
Just from book one.
from understanding them from book 1 and from understanding the movies, then yeah, technically they would, if that was a thing that existed in this world, then yeah, they would tick all the boxes. The average girl, like let's just compare ACOTAR, right? We have the average girl with the very strong, very successful, very supernatural being. So like it would be like a Feyre and Rhysand type relationship that they just kind of their worlds merge, and more as the female goes into the supernatural world, like Feyre, she enters Anne's world and becomes very dominant in that world itself. So yeah, she would tick every box in the fated mates box. I do want to circle back a little bit to Renee as a first time read in my 30s, reading about Renee. I'm just like, and I come from divorced parents too. My mom decided to do what's best for her and leave our family. And I was raised by a single father. I had my brother, so I was the youngest. So I think our perspectives of that was a little bit different because you're an older sibling and you had a younger brother. But I very much understand the abandonment and feeling that. But being a mom and like getting remarried and like, yeah, I'm just gonna go with my new husband to Jacksonville to
Right.
hopefully start off his baseball career because he's in like the minor leagues. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Like my mind couldn't process that. And that's
Yeah.
such glazed over in the books because I feel like Bella has to glaze over that. We're
Yeah.
not gonna dive into how that is
Uh-uh.
so problematic. And I honestly, I want to see in Midnight Sun what what Edward's perspective of Renee was, because Edward meets Renee and Edward can read her mind, and
Ooh.
I honestly want to see that
Yeah.
because there's no, and she like comes in at the very end when she's in the hospital like worried about her and whatnot, but everything's gonna be fine because he got a job and she's gonna take her with her to Jacksonville because it ended up working out. I just want to,
Yeah.
I don't know how delusional she would be. And, you
Yeah.
can
The
argue like
the Delulu
narcissist
is, yeah,
tendencies.
strong. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, clear narcissistic tendencies and just kind of very self-centered, very go with the wind, as long as the wind is my wind, not anyone else's. And I just it really irritated me because I would never.
Mm-mm.
I would never. Like that
Yeah, no.
thought just doesn't cross my mind to be like, it's okay. It's okay. You can go live with their father, which obviously she should have a relationship with her father. It's kind of sad that they had that time apart.
Yeah, Charlie has
Um
his issues too, because he was just like, okay, bye. Like,
Obviously.
what?
Right.
Like,
And
how
I
did you
feel
just like let
like
that happen?
and he has self-esteem issues, and I want to kind of go into like there's something that had to have happened when he was a child that he feels like he's not good enough for anyone around him to be willing to let people walk out of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So we had know nothing about Charlie's backstory, who his parents were, what his childhood was. That's probably like very, very deep, and we're obviously never gonna get that. I'm assuming we're never gonna get that, but it's Bella's story. So
Yeah.
he clearly has, he just needs therapy. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
Charlie, you're good enough. Charlie, you're good enough. People should want to be with you, Charlie. It's okay.
Yeah. People
So,
like you, Charlie.
which
It's okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay, Charlie. Which now as an adult, I'm like, Charlie, my man. But
Yeah.
and like not so much Edward now because,
But then also,
Edward is
like, your
he looks like a
17-year-old
17-year-old.
daughter moves back, you're a cop, and then you still continue to work all your weekends? Like, that's in the book. I mean,
Yeah.
what are
She
you
never sees
doing?
him. And
No.
honestly, this is like you said, they set her up to go to honestly, like you're saying they set her up because she's like mature, she can to like be with Edward. They set her up for a teenage girl to seek love elsewhere because her parents aren't loving her enough or showing her enough love. I'll
Wow.
be honest.
That was
If
next
they were
level.
present, if they were present, because
Oh, absolutely. If they were highly
you
involved
see
and
this all
she
the
was
time.
involved, I don't think, but I don't
No,
know.
she wouldn't need to fill her cup with something else, with someone
That's the
else. And
mom
I
in
don't think that's
you.
a bad thing. That is the mom in me. That is the mom in me. If you just loved her and told her that and you were present, then her cup
Red
would be
flags
filled.
might have been seen.
A
Maybe. I don't
little
know.
bit.
I don't know that that would have mattered because I still think that Bella and Edward were like fated mates in this story. In my
Right.
mind, I don't feel like that would have changed anything because her found family is the Cullen family. I mean, she gets siblings, she gets Alice, she gets, the whole deal. I mean, she gets with the Cullens, and that's her newfound family, and quite literally. And so it's like there's nothing for her in her own family, and they clearly are like okay without her. Her mom's okay without her dad's okay without her. He even makes a comment in the book that I highlighted that was like, Bella, I've been having dinner, because she's like, oh, I'm not going to be home for dinner tonight, Charlie, or dad, and she like complete like corrects herself before she says Charlie, and then she says dad, and then like he's like, well, Bella, I've been making dinner for myself for 17 years, I think I'll be okay. And it's like, man,
Mhm.
that was kind of fucked up. Like,
Right. Right.
and he doesn't mean it that way. And even I didn't read
No,
it that way. But then I thought about it as like, wow, okay, you can go out, but like also like,
I
thanks
don't
for
need
making dinner,
you.
but I have no,
I don't,
I don't need you, like, imagine
right.
what that feels like. And like that kind of
As a teenage
continues.
girl.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, right. I hate to say that hits a lot closer to home than
Mm-hmm.
I would like, having that sense of from a parent not expressing negative feelings and
Yeah.
internalizing that into like actions and whatnot. And that's like something like I strive, like my child. I will give you all the love so you don't have to seek it from someone else.
Wow.
And
That's fair.
a lot of this goes into I really do deep dives into like serial killers too, and that's like
Oh
their
boy.
main prey. If so, I love true crime. True crime's like my thing.
We
It's
cover
actually
thrillers. So,
right, but like there's I don't know, my husband thinks something's wrong with me. He's like, you literally clean the house to true crime and casually watch true crime documentaries about serial killers
not
and whatnot.
anything wrong with you.
That says no, not at all. But people like kidnappers and serial killers, they target children whose parents are not present and are not
Yeah, of course
emotionally
they do.
present specifically.
And
So
also
that's
houses
what
without
yep.
dogs. But anyway.
Mhm. That's why I have two
I,
large ones.
same. Yeah, don't come up in here. Yeah, same, exactly. I think that Bella meeting Edward was inevitable because I do think they were fated mates. The other
Mhm.
indicators of this are not fully revealed in this book. Therefore, I will hold my full reasoning for this as we go through. So I will just preface with saying that there are a few indicators at the start for me, and the biggest indicator for me that they are fated mates is that Edward cannot read her mind. That is
Right.
like my biggest indicator that they are fated mates. Is
Right. And I asked you,
yeah.
I was like, why? And you're like, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm like, oh, man, there's something weird about this. So, yeah,
Yes. So
I
you'll have to
agree.
keep
I'm like, that's
reading
weird.
to get the full story here. But for me, the first indicator that they are fated mates is that. And as we go through the full series, we will talk about that a lot more. I already mentioned this, but the car crash too, she would have died. So again, the fact that Edward saves her life, not a coincidence. And yes, we have all the other things that have set her up with her parents being absentee, all these other factors that she loves classic literature. She is very clearly a lot more mature than her classmates. And that's identified in the movies and it's identified in the book. And that is a key element too of like identifying that she's a lot more mature. He's clearly a lot more mature. He's 104.
And she's
There's just a lot of
right. And
things that don't match up.
right. And in the book, she's a lot more intelligent too,
Yes.
because she was like in some advanced classes. So she's
Hmm.
very with it. And it surprises the teachers, like, especially like her bio teacher, who's
Yeah.
like, were you some in some
Were you in
AP class?
advanced
Because this is
placement?
a very
Yeah.
hard lab. Yeah. And she's like, oh, yeah. And it's
Hmm.
just kind of brushed off. Like, she's not portrayed like that in the movies at all, which, I think that's supposed to give her credibility too. She's not just
Right. And
some dumb girl making decisions with her
yeah.
heart. Like, she's actually very intelligent too.
Yep. And then like the other thing that's emphasized in the book versus the movie is that the teacher makes a comment about advanced placement and then because Mike is like, "Oh, did you get all your answers from your lab from Cullen? Like he always knows them all or whatever." And I guess he was like didn't
Because
have a
he's
lab
done the
partner
lab
because
like
of that.
50
Yeah,
times.
and so like the teacher had figured this out, obviously. It didn't say that, but like that's why he asked her if she's had advanced placement because Edward was like, "Oh yeah, she did this herself," and he like didn't believe her at first, and she was like, "Yeah, I've
Hmm.
already done all this." And so like, "Oh, well, I guess it's okay that I paired you with Edward," kind of thing. Meaning like he already clearly needs a partner that knows what they're doing too, otherwise somebody's just going to like skate by. And it wasn't
My
her. She's not going to
question,
skate by. Yeah.
right. My question is, and I've always wondered this, why do they have to be in high school? Why can't we just pretend they're 18 and graduated and like just get a job? They wouldn't have to move around so much. Like, why go through
I don't know.
a bio lab 50 times? Like, because they have like 2 years max and then they have to like re-enroll somewhere. Just make them 18, make them
Well,
graduated.
maybe,
And
well, they
then,
kind of talk about this in the book. Like, they want to start
okay,
out at the youngest possible level before they advance. So, like, they had just moved there 2 years
I
ago,
guess.
and Jessica had commented that they had just moved there like
There's
two
no
years
way
ago.
Emmett looked like a freshman because he's not aging. There's no way Emmett looked like a freshman 2 years
Look, I don't
ago.
know. I'm just saying. And so
Listen,
then they
Rosalie as a
stayed.
freshman, all of them as a freshman. I'm sorry. Where's the awkward, chunky pimples?
No.
That would piss
Yeah.
me off so much
No,
if I was
freshmen
in
are
high school
definitely
and
look
those were the
really, really
freshmen.
young. Yeah, absolutely
They're little
no.
babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work. Okay.
But we're going to let that slide because we have to.
All right.
So we have all the different scenes. We have the baseball game, Edward admitting that he's a vampire. What did you think of like these like quintessential Twilight-esque parts?
Let's start with the forest scene where they were actually going on like a hike, right? And this is where he admits the truth. And how this is portrayed in the books, which is very different than the movies, and it actually irritated me. And we were watching the movie together. I'm like, that's not how it was. Where are they going? Why is the
Yeah.
forest next to the school?
It
So right, because they're supposed to take a car ride to the end of the highway, and she was supposed to hike, and she was like, "What? I'm not hiking up this. What are you talking about? We're gonna be here all day." And they hike up to the little opening that they
Mhm.
have where the light's shining just a little bit through the forest and Edward shows himself to her,
Mhm.
right? And that scene, as I was reading it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute. Why does he sparkle? And it's not, it's just like this is what this vampire does, which fine. It's, all vampires are lore anyways. So he can be the type of vampire she wants him to be, I guess. And the fact that she like almost dismisses it. Like she talks about a little bit how his hands sparkle, but she's like, okay, checks out. And I'm like,
I,
girl, wait a minute.
well,
Wait a
she does that
minute.
a lot in the book too, where she just
Why
is
are we
like,
dismissing?
"I've accepted that I love you already." Again, fated mates.
Right. And I'm just like,
Just
there
no
should be so many more
self-preservation. She's
questions
literally like,
in
"I
your
could kill you in
mind.
2 seconds," and she's like, "That's okay. I've accepted it." Like what?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And I'm like, the entire time, I'm like, wait, I have questions. Why aren't you asking these questions? You must have more
She's
questions
17,
because
Michelle.
he sparkles. He sparkles like I don't even know. Like he sparkles so much an analogy is eluding my brain right now
Yeah,
that
diamonds
she just
shine bright like a diamond.
right. But
This
like
is
not just like
predates
one
that song
diamond.
by a
He's
lot.
literally like he he has like a billion diamonds on him. He's literally like the night
A
sky,
billion.
just
Yeah, there you go.
illuminating
Yeah.
everywhere. And he's she just like it's fine. And then they have their first kiss. And in this in this meadow scene where
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of getting close and he like backs away like crazy and then has this whole like stay very still because he's trying to like hold back the urge to like drink her
Kill
blood and
her.
whatnot.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he they have that there's a lot of buildup. So if I was like 13, 14, like reading this, I'd be like, this is intense. And
Yeah.
I'm just flipping through being like, okay, they just pecked on the lips and that's it. That's it.
Tell me you read dark
I'm like,
romance without telling me.
wait, she's 17. I'm like, wait, she's 17. Okay, that has to be it
Relax,
because
Michelle.
that needs to be it. No, literally, I was listening to Caught Up as I was
Oh
reading
no.
this, not like at
Oh
the same
hell.
time, but like
Right. Right. Yeah.
I was listening to it also. But I was
Yeah.
like, oh wait, no, wrong world, wrong world. Forests are not traps for pleasure. Forests are. This is where we uncover secrets. So.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that was cute. That's where they had their first kiss, which is not where they had their first kiss in the movie. They're in her bedroom.
Right.
And she had
Yeah.
underwear on. She is 17. She needs to put some pants on.
Oh my goodness. How else do we feel? Does the 104 to 17 thing bother you?
So, yes, because she's a minor. But
Okay.
in the next book, she turns 18. I'm like, you know what? Technically, legally, she can make her decisions herself.
Interesting.
Doesn't bother me as much. But because she's 17, it rubs me the wrong way because she's technically a minor.
Got it.
That 1 year
Okay.
makes a difference from a legal perspective because he's technically a pedophile.
Well, but he's 17. So technically
No,
he's
104. He is 104. He is not 17.
I mean, his
He may
body hasn't
look like
aged
he's 17.
beyond 17.
He's still 104.
Got it. Okay. All right. I mean,
so, yes.
devil's advocate here. I'm just, trying to fan the flames. Don't mind me. I agree
But like,
with you.
when you're an adult, it doesn't matter. Like we just read Quicksilver. He's like 1833, something like that.
And she's
And
24.
24. Yeah, it's like 24. You've been an adult for 6 years. You can make your decisions. It's fine.
But also, character who has been through a fuck ton. Way more than Bella, but even still. Same kind of thing. Bella has been through a lot. She's not your traditional 17-year-old. I think they try to, Stephenie Meyer tries to establish that many, many times to understand the fact that he's been 17 for a while. I want to talk about that. Like, he visually looks young, and I wonder how that played with the fandom as a whole and, like, this whole world of Twilight and the fandom. I want to talk about how in 2025, do we think this book would be as successful as it was then? Do we think we would have more problems with that?
Yes, because she's a minor. People would
Yes, it
it's
would
a
be as
big thing.
successful, or it would have more problems.
It would have more problems.
Okay.
I think because she starts off as a minor.
Yeah.
I think that would be a big issue that people would have a lot of problems with. And
Well,
obviously a
he's a
13,
virgin.
14,
She's
15
a
year old,
virgin
he's
too.
100.
Yeah, we can't get
He's
over that.
104. The
This is fair.
technicality of that is he's technically an adult. So
Yes,
whether he's
by far.
17, his body's preserved as 17, he is an adult. So I think a lot of people would have problems with that. And I honestly don't think this would be successful. If
Okay.
just because of that aspect, I think a lot more people would be up in arms about that than back in 2005. So,
Yeah.
but as far as storyline goes, the book is, even though the writing is a very right?
Yeah.
She doesn't write eloquently. She's very like she
Yeah.
tells you
Yeah.
what is going on. Exactly. Yeah. She tells you what is going on. There's not a lot of character description. Like she doesn't spend a whole page describing his washboard abs, you know, and what she would
Thankfully.
do to them. So she just
Unthankfully.
tells it like it is.
Yeah.
But the storyline is very complex in terms of how the world is built through the entire saga. So I would say there's complexity to her writing. It's just not descriptive writing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think as far as her storyline goes, it would be successful nowadays. I think just with the first book being like that, people would have issues. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I totally agree with you. I
Mhm.
think if she wrote this today, she would have written her at 18. Hands down.
Mhm.
I
She would
think the
have
book
to.
would have started in
They're
her,
seniors, 18.
or she would have been a really older junior, which would have still worked. I think she would have been 18 and she would have been an older junior for whatever
Which
reason.
technically her
She could come
birthday's
up
in
with a
September.
reason.
So she should be an older junior just because September is the cutoff.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So she could do an end of September birthday. She would have been 18 and start the story there.
Mhm.
I think it would have worked just as well. The whole story could have been the same. Edward could have been 18, literally bump it by 1 year. I think it changed the whole dynamic. However, I do also think that it's important to point out that I think in some states, 17 is still an age of consent. And I don't
In
know.
Michigan, it's 16, which is wild. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What?
So I don't
16?
know if
Why?
I don't know if this changes anything of the time that this was written, but I do think it speaks to that time and how, even though that may be true today, that even in certain places, age of consent and things like that are variable based on where you live. I do think that she would have made the choice from an author standpoint. I can't ask her. I don't know. We're not going to interview her. Unfortunately, I would love to. Stephenie Meyer, I would love to interview you. But I wonder if she would make that choice differently and say, yeah, we're gonna shift everybody by a year and just not even not even have the controversy of what that would look
Of
like
it, yeah.
today. Yeah, I think she would get away from that. Well, let's talk about the difference between like the movie and the book and what differences we saw there. I'm gonna let you kind of start with this one only because I have seen the movie so many times, so many times, and I've read the book one other time, and then now I did my reread, of course, but I did notice quite a few different things, but I would say there's a couple key instances that like stick out the most. I think the biggest for me is like the reveal of Edward being a vampire. It still bothers me that that reveal isn't the same as the book. And the reason it bothers me
Mhm.
is because that is such a plot driver. Now, does it really necessarily matter because ultimately we find out the same thing? No. But as a reader, I wanted that. I wanted it to be the same
Mhm.
of how she figures out he's a vampire, how they talk and how that relationship is built. I think they talk like a lot more in the book than they do in the film. There's a lot
Oh
more like
yeah, and the
brooding parts of the film where they're just like hanging out in the
yeah,
same space but not saying anything. And
making
even in the
painful faces.
yeah, but even in the meadow scene, right? It just like zooms out and they're just like talking, but you have no idea what they're talking about. There's no lines
Mhm.
written for that. And I think that has to do with like
Right.
budgetary reasons too. Like the film budget for Twilight, the first movie with the blue, screen and all that was so much smaller than it was for all the other films that followed it because of the fandom that just
Right.
backed it. But yeah, there was definitely a couple things that were different.
I would say that. I mean, to your point, they talked a whole lot more. In between classes they talked, which there's some of that. On the way back from Port Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
when Edwards rescues her, right? And after they eat at the restaurant, they have a whole conversation about like, what it's like being a vampire. She like just gives him or asks him a ton of questions. But in the movie, that car ride is about him speeding, and literally because he can detect when there are police around, he doesn't care and goes like 100 miles an hour plus.
Which is true in the book
So,
too, but like there's like a whole lot of conversation that occurs and it's very glazed
right.
over. There's only like distract me so I say something else or whatever. And
And
like
that's when
that's
she's talking about
true.
prom,
Yeah.
but she talks about like the seatbelt where she actually like gives him a distraction, like let's talk about prom and how Tyler's asked me out to prom and all this, and he thinks that's funny, which
Yeah.
that's not really a big part of
No. Not
the
really part of the
movies either.
movies.
About Tyler asking her to prom, and he has it in his mind that he's gonna be a date, and the whole prom thing. Prom was her outfit. I am so sorry, and I know like I'm not a superficial person at all, but the leggings and the dress, she was
Well,
supposed
it
to
was
be
of that
in like
time.
some European, she was supposed to be in some European dress, like
Mm-hmm.
one of Alice's dresses. So she was supposed to look fancy, and she wasn't supposed to know she was going to prom, but she knew she was going to prom, and she was wearing those leggings with that dress. I'm like, what the what is that? And I understand. I understand. She just needed the zebra print with the pink bow. That's what she needed. To be like quintessential millennial prom was
Oh
the
yeah.
zebra print and the pink.
Yes, yes, yes. All right, that's fair. I am curious in Midnight Sun because I haven't read Midnight Sun, so we're not there yet. But I also haven't read it, and we don't get a movie from Midnight Sun's perspective. I really wonder if they had been written closer together because she didn't release Midnight Sun until 2020, how that would or would not have influenced the film. So as a reread for me, that's something, and first time read for Midnight Sun, that's something I'm curious about, and if I'm wondering if it will change how I see the movie once I know that. And I wonder if, I don't know if that would change much other than to say, like, when Stephenie Meyer was on set, because she has a cameo in Twilight, if that was guidance that she gave Robert Pattinson. I wonder if that she knew already what she was going to kind of do there and gave some guidance there. I don't want to quickly like put a blurb in that if you're looking for chapter by chapter Twilight coverage, there are a couple podcasts, they're a little bit older now, that did do very deep dive chapter by chapter coverage. I think one's as recent as 2023 when they stopped filming. There's a few of them out there, and you can still find them on Instagram and on different websites that truly did like full deep dives of these books and tied it all together. We won't do that because, again, it's already been done, but we're kind of just celebrating this 20th anniversary of Twilight, which is insane, and wanted to do something different with the show and something really nostalgic, and it's been really fun, but we aren't going to do that here for our episodes. Right. So, moving on.
Okay. Another scene or another aspect that was different from the books and the movies is Jacob. Just Jacob in general was
Mhm.
different. Jacob in the books appears like he appears more often, and they haven't seen each other for about 8 years, if I remember correctly, in the books, and they talk about how he wants to he needs parts for his rabbit, and he's more present in the books. He gives the whole background story of the cold ones in the books, and that's what drives Bella into the research, whereas it was kind of flipped in the movies, where Jacob didn't really have as much of an influence in talking about the cold ones. And Billy also had more of a presence as well, because he spoke with Bella multiple times about, watch out for the Cullens. Like, he had a weird vibe about the Cullens, and that isn't as emphasized in the movies, and it made that ending conversation between Jacob and Bella in the movie weird. Like, if I didn't know from the books, it would seem a little off, because you just have like that one conversation with Jacob about them being the cold ones, And then, oh wait, my dad doesn't want you being around them and you need to have some self-preservation. And he gave me $20 to tell you that.
Yeah, it's
So
weird.
that it's weird in the movies, but if you got it from like the book's perspective, you know this like built over time through multiple encounters, it makes sense why he feels that way. And you get like her reactions and her having, I don't want to say she had anxiety when Billy was around, but really like she felt the tension of him and how he felt around the Cullens. It was more emphasized. So that was a part of the movie that was missing. And obviously we've talked about budget and understanding there are things that need to be cut and whatnot.
Got added, like the field trip to the greenhouse. That did not occur in the book, and it totally got added.
No. But that's funny. I mean,
it worked.
Watching it, I was like, teenagers on a field trip is just chaos. So it was really funny. Like, was it Eric or was it Mike that was drinking the compost tea? And he's like, don't drink that. It's like, that's such a thing that you have to yell at 17-year-old boys. Like, don't drink or eat some random shit because you think it's funny.
Yeah.
Jeremy, $5.
And then there's also like in the movie, there's 2 different dances. There's prom and there's a spring fling thing. So there was more than one
in the book.
Yeah, or sorry, in the book. Yeah, you're right. There was 2 dances in the book, and there's only one in the movie. And then in the book as well, and this is very typical to movie to book adaptations, you have like characters described different ways where people get like really upset if they don't like meet those certain things. You know, Charlie has curly hair in the book. Emmett is described a little bit differently with curly hair. Alice in particular is supposed to be like tiny and like pixie-like overall, not just her hair. She's supposed to be like small. She's definitely very tall in the film, so that didn't work. There was a couple different things that just weren't the same. One of the big things that Twilight diehards get upset about is the fact that the blood test scene was in the book and not in the film. Yeah. Which is
the blood
wild.
test scene when he wasn't there for. And I'm like, okay, so he clearly knows the blood test scene's going to happen. He doesn't want to be around that. Right. Because that would set him off. And that whole scene, I was so annoyed with because, you know, she passes out. She doesn't like her blood. That's pretty common, honestly, with people. And Mike takes her to the nurse. But Edward comes out of nowhere because he was just skipping in his car. Whatnot. Boy's not in school. Have other issues with that. His attendance. Absenteeism is real. And he takes her to the nurse and he convinces the nurse that she doesn't need to go to gym class. In fact, he will drive her home himself and just check them both out for the day because his teacher also doesn't care if he's absent. I'm just like, I'm sorry.
It's 2005, Michelle.
You're in the adults on this campus.
Relax. He's also very convincing. But he's not, okay.
Well, yeah, because of his, you know, vampirism and whatnot. But she is also, like, I don't care.
Everybody thinks it's fine.
He hasn't been there for 2 years.
Daughter, you know, it'll be okay.
It'll be okay. No one does anything bad to the police's children ever.
Exactly.
So I'm just like, that is
Chief Swan's daughter. Come on, she'll be okay.
I was just when I read that, I'm like, I was talking to my husband. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, he can't check her out. He's not on her list of designated people that can check her out.
Yeah.
I
can see we're so upset I know about this. We gotta let this go. The ship has got to sail.
And they're just, I mean, obviously, you know, my past experience has been in the education system, so I have a different perspective in some things that happen on school property, which vampires checking out 17-year-olds from the nurse's office is not something that is okay.
Well, to be fair, the nurse didn't know that he was a vampire. So we're going to give her some leeway there. Oh,
okay. Well,
yeah, sure. We're going to give her some leeway for that. There's a bunch of different things that are different in terms of how, you know, how it's revealed that he's a vampire. We talked about it a little bit. We talked about how we have the different dances. There's this weird thing, and I remember this being talked about a lot at the time when the movies come out, that he wears the family crest a lot, which is like not a thing in the books, like at all, really.
No,
this doesn't come up. It was kind of strange throughout the movies. It's in the second movie too. and you see it and you're like, why is there a family crest here? Like, what's the deal with this? And I remember thinking about that in the books where I was just like, I don't think this is necessary, but okay. And I think when they went back to talk about the movies, there was somebody that was mentioning like, oh, like it establishes more age or whatever. I don't know that I necessarily agree or disagree with that. It was just a choice that they made. And then
Right.
of course, there's certain moments that were like critical in my mind of like the first time they kiss is different from the book than the movie. These are things that the
In her
fandom was
bedroom.
waiting for that they didn't get when the book came converted to a movie.
Mhm.
But at the same time, because the budget was so small, I think the OG fans that started reading this book from the beginning, knowing it was going to become a movie, like us with Quicksilver,
Mm.
is it going to be exactly the same? Probably not. Am I still
Right.
really excited that they're making it into something and that there's a likelihood that it catches the same amount of steam that this does and becomes massive and they get a massive budget? I would love that. And I will even allow them to take
Mhm.
certain liberties with the script. I hope that they don't. I hope we're in an era now where in 2025, cinema and consumption of media has really changed dramatically since this time to now. At this time, you
Mhm.
didn't have Netflix, you didn't have Amazon Prime, you didn't have apps on your TV.
You had to
You didn't
watch the
have
ads like a
you had
normal
yes, you had
person.
to watch commercials. Like there was not a way to consume media that exists today. But
Mhm.
with that, that also means that the standards of which movies were released was like an hour and a half, whatever. Nobody was going to be making anything like exponentially longer.
2,
They
two and a
didn't
half hours
think
long, like
no,
now.
or breaking it up into they broke up Breaking Dawn because of the popularity by that point, but I
Mhm.
just think that there wasn't enough belief that there would be interest in this to spend more money and more
That's
time
fair.
on it at that time. Yeah.
That's fair. One of the differences that actually kind of upset me was the baseball game, and it was only because this was really important because, well, so back up to when she meets the Cullens, Carlisle gives
Mhm.
Bella his backstory, right?
Yeah.
But she doesn't get Esme's perspective until the baseball game. And this was important where we learn Esme's backstory and how heartbreaking it is and why she's
Yeah.
such a good like mother figure.
Hmm.
And that was completely left off in the movies. And like this point, like that story made me really sad because, I can feel that. She lost her baby and literally threw herself off a cliff. Like I obviously don't know that feeling, but I can sympathize with someone who has that feeling and having that sort of turmoil internally. So that paints her character in a different way when you remove that whole aspect of her personality and her backstory.
Yeah.
So, and you learn a lot more about the characters in the book with the baseball game. Whereas the baseball game in the movies almost seem like a fun setup for the nomadic vampires to show up,
Yeah.
which is true, but it also like there was just more backstory
Yeah.
that was given in a lot of key points in the book. But that one, I was just like, oh, like you missed that from Esme.
And I think that they decided so kind of moving into the pop culture phenomena of our next phase of what we're going to discuss with this book and kind of wrapping up the differences between the books and the movies. I think it's important to note from a financial standpoint, Twilight had $37 million budget. By
Which
comparison,
isn't a lot
well,
for a
by
movie. It's not a
by
lot.
compare only a few years later, Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn, parts 1 and 2 each had over $100 million each one.
Hmm.
I mean, that's almost 4 times for each
Right.
one the budget. So there had to be cuts. Now, what's
Yeah.
really interesting to me is that it's one of the highest grossing film series ever. It has grossed 3.3 billion with a B dollars as a vampire franchise. That is insane. Like
Hmm.
that's nuts that it's made that much money. And then you have to think too, like, who were Kristen Stewart, Robert Pattinson, Taylor Lautner, Lee Green, just all of the key
Anna
major key
Kendrick.
yeah, Anna Kendrick, all the big actors and actresses who made up this, even Catherine Hardwicke, who directed Twilight, she was one of the first of her time to be a female director. I remember at the time looking this up because I was really interested in it in 2008. I was trying to figure out, like, how do you break into directing films as a woman? What does that look like? And I think 3% of all films were women directed at that time. Is incredibly low. And it's been written about multiple times, just the social impact that this has had, and more importantly, how the actors were, a lot of them were no names because they simply couldn't afford it. We knew who Robert Pattinson was to a certain extent because of his success in Harry Potter, of course, as
He's my
Cedric
goblet of
Diggory.
fire.
Yep. But it's just insane what the level of fandom Twilight has had. There's just no denying the level of interest that this has had, the fandom part of it that just has followed this. I just, it's a lot. I'm really ready. I'm excited to talk about Eclipse, especially in the movies. I can't wait to talk about this more. Some of the CGI elements, some of the choices that were made throughout the films. Twilight, it's campy. This, and campy meaning, like, it has this, like, staying power where the fandom loves to make fun of itself. They know how nerdy it is. They understand that there's this level of, like, indie kitschiness to it, and people love
The
that.
hacky sacks.
Oh, yeah. In the first movie, yeah.
That was so funny.
Yeah.
They're just kicking air.
Yeah.
But
And then
and the blue tint also, like, that is part of the nostalgia, and part of it was supposed to set the vibe, and the blue tint went away as the movies got bigger. In New Moon, there isn't a blue tint at all, but that, that's something that people make fun of, but it's a huge part of the I don't know, the likability of Twilight, how it was different. There wasn't any movie at the time, at least that I remember it. I know I didn't watch Twilight when it came out. I didn't watch it until it was 2020, when that was like my COVID binge. And I don't remember a time where there was a blue tint on another movie, or like those close-up scenes of them and the camera spiraling around them and having just such close, intimate just shots of those two characters. It was before its time, even with like the low budget. It started so much in the future of movies and in the future of storytelling. We've talked about how Twilight was the catalyst of basically what fantasy and romantasy are today.
Yeah. I for sure think we don't have ACOTAR or Fourth Wing or Crowns of Nyaxia series or any of those to the level of fandom they have today without Twilight. And that's because us as readers then, and even interest then, are the reasons why these have become so successful. And I think that they open the floodgates. And it's known in social media too that, like, oh, did you read Twilight? Did you read Hunger Games? Did you read Harry Potter? Did you read, later on? And like, let's talk about that, because E.L. James for 50 Shades of Grey, her entire series was based off of Twilight. She was a Twilight fan fiction writer, and Twilight, the very first book, is 50 Shades of Grey. Anastasia is Bella. Like, they're the same. Christian is Edward. It's the modern day version. They take place in the same area of the world. They take place in Seattle. I mean, these parallels are
less
on
whips
purpose.
And chains.
Less whips and chains. But for the readers who read this, I mean, those are your fandom. That's your Twilight fandom right there. Those are the ones who read, 50 Shades of Grey, and it opened the gates to that whole movie franchise, which became a movie franchise on its own.
And that whole, that, opened the door to dark romance. And just romance is a genre, like a great genre now, because romance was a small section in the back of Barnes and Nobles where no one goes and reads because it's embarrassing or whatever. But now women or people,
well, it's more publicly accepted.
Whoever.
I don't know. I think women back then, it always had like the guy without the shirt and like horse in the background. Yeah. And the girl like swooning, or the Fabio looking guy, which if you don't know who Fabio is, Google it. The long blonde hair, buff dude, standing.
Right.
next to a mountain
But
or
that was
whatever.
very
That was like very
romance though was
cliche.
very vanilla. Yeah, it was very vanilla. Like the just writing about sex though it was taboo, and it's
By
less
comparison
so
to now.
nowadays.
Yes,
It
absolutely.
yes,
Yeah.
it the Twilight
Well,
opened
I
50 Shades of
remember
Grey, which opened a new
vividly,
genre.
I vividly remember mommy porn being dubbed 50 Shades of Grey. And that was like what was it was
Oh.
called, was mommy porn, was like, let me get my drink, which is wine, right? And then let me read my mommy porn, which was now has become smut. And this was like the first big push, and all stems from Twilight. So there's no denying the impact that Twilight has truly had on pop culture. I'm really excited to talk more about how each specific book in the timeline of when they were released have had major impacts. I think that's truly a great segue into our guest tonight, which our interview is going to be talking about how that has impacted her, and also how she started getting into interest in witches and how you can do Twilight movie marathons with her cookbook. So we have Kayla coming up next, joining us tonight, who is going to be talking to us about her book. And we are so excited because we exclusively have the privilege of, before this book releases, which it comes out on July 15th, to talk to her about her book. Michelle, what are your thoughts on that?
So this cookbook, I knew that there was a lot of cooking in the books, and there's a lot of food in the movies, in the books. But being able to actually have it materialize, there's so many recipes in here that I'm so excited to make.
Yeah.
And not just because it's related to Twilight. I mean, the fact that it is related to Twilight is amazing. But these recipes are delicious. Like, this is like her introduction page. Look at these pancakes.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
They're fluffy, guys.
everything
They're
is
fluffy.
delicious. And she has drinks. So she
Mhm.
has basically a recipe for every meal of the day, snacks included,
Mhm.
as well as drinks. And it's just so thought through because she included recipes from just the books. Like, you wouldn't know that if you just watched the movies that Bella made enchiladas for Charlie, and how that was like such
Yeah.
an experience for him
Mhm.
because he doesn't eat Mexican food because there's no Mexican food around. And then there's stuff that's just in the movies that you get. And it's an amazing cookbook.
Yes.
And I'm very excited for you guys to hear our conversation with Kayla because she's just so sweet.
Yeah, she
And
was. She was
we had
great.
such a great time with her.
I think this is our first ever author interview, too.
It
And of a
is.
cookbook, which is kind of exciting because I was thinking about that as far as like we do the drink of the episode. We're moms
Mm-hmm.
who bake and cook, and I love to bake. And so having a cookbook author as one of our first guests, especially related to the content that we're covering and tying in, so it just worked. Like it worked out really well that it happened to be,
Mm-hmm.
they reached out and we were like, it's completely coincidental that we're going to be covering Twilight in the summer.
It was
This would
fate.
be amazing. Yeah, it was totally like meant to work out. So we're going to jump right into our interview with Kayla. So we'll skip to that and then we'll wrap everything up with our mystery Q&A. So let's get to it.
Good evening. Tonight we have with us Kayla, the author of the Unofficial Twilight Saga cookbook. Kayla, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to talk
excited.
all things Twilight
So
and this
excited.
cookbook. I love cooking. Home cooking's my thing. So I'm just so excited to talk to you about this. Could you give our listeners any sort of Instagram or some handle, some sort of social media handle so they can go ahead and follow you?
Absolutely. So I promote my content on TikTok. My TikTok is Kayla underscore loves LUVS underscore sparkly underscore vamps. And then
Don't we all?
on my
That's right.
Instagram,
Yes.
right? On my Instagram, it's not as fun. It's just Kayla underscore Ruhland underscore 1996.
Okay.
Awesome. Definitely
Awesome.
everyone go ahead and give her a follow.
I want to talk about really quickly before my drink. It just needs to be drank, and it's literally right next to me. And so everyone knows that I love a good drink of the episode. We here on Book Club After Dark are big fans of drink of the episode. So when I saw your cookbook and you had a whole section on drinks, I audibly screamed. I was like, yes, we finally have something.
I love
So I made your drink right here. Look at this right here. This
Ooh.
is Edward's Venom shot. And I have to show you because, like, I've got blood dripping into there. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
Oh,
Look,
yeah.
we've got blood dripping
Mhm.
in. I'm really excited.
That's what we want to see.
Yes, the blood, it's ready. It's got the consistency. And it even, like, when I thought of his Venom from the book, like, the color and consistency is, like, right in the pictures. And I loved that because you could see, even in the movies, right? You see, like, Bella's bite and it has that, like, iridescent type of the whole vibe. And I was like, this embodies what we're doing. And so this interview is part of episode 1 of our Twilight coverage, which is the pinnacle, the very beginning of this whole story. And you still get that glimpse of Edward's Venom in book 1. And so I was like, if there's anything that we're going to make for this that's ideal is this drink. So cheers. We're going to try it out right now here and give one of your recipes a
Cheers.
go. So bottoms up. Here we go. Okay, that's good. That is good.
Yay!
All right. This could be, you guys, we could drink this by the pool. We could drink it as a shot. We could drink it however you want to drink it. This is good. It's light, refreshing. It's has that little that grayness to it on purpose because we're trying to look like Edward's Venom, but also that's lemon juice. So it's giving that look to it, but it's got great flavor, vodka, orange liqueur. Yeah, this one's a winner. So very good, Kayla. Already, 5 out of 5 stars for me for this cookbook. I haven't tried anything else yet. So, but this so
I
far
love
is a
that.
winner.
The drink's
Thank
it. That's
you.
what matters. All right. So
Cheers.
let's talk about your journey as an author. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to authoring a Twilight cookbook.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, this will sound cliched and like I, came up with it, but I swear it really is the truth. It all starts in 2008. And my stepmom was like, you need to do summer reading. I got you this book. Everyone's raving about it. And I was, a reader for sure, but I wasn't a reader yet. And so she handed it to me and I was like, Twilight? What's Twilight? And I read the first
Yeah.
chapter and I was like, I do not understand why Bella is so impressed with this old truck. I don't know if this is for me. And I kind of set it to the side a little bit. And then I saw the trailer for the movie coming out later that year. And I ran right back to the book and I was like, I need to get through. And get through I did. I finished it so quickly. And I went on to like demand to read the rest of the series, like going to the school library. I was obsessed. And by the time I got to see the movie, I saw the movie 11 times in theaters. My
Oh.
family and my friends were so happy with me. But it truly was what helped me become a lover of reading. Every time after that, I was like, I want to have that feeling again. I really, really want to just immerse myself totally in a series. And I was very happy to find that in other series, but I also always return to Twilight to reread.
Mhm.
And that made me interested in also writing. So from that point forward, I really just identified as a bookworm and someone who wanted to write and work in the world of books. That was my main goal from 12 onward. And so, years down the line, it's 2021 and it's my 25th birthday is coming up. And I wanted to, because, things were starting to be a little bit safer to hang out with more people, especially outdoors. And I had access to this like really cool deck and yard and it could be spread out. And I thought, I want to do something fun for my birthday. And I realized I had never had a Twilight birthday party, which, believe me, I was the kid that had like the Twilight sweatshirt and was going to the premiere nights. Like, it's very odd, honestly, that I didn't have a Twilight birthday party at any point. And so I thought, well, why not do it now? And I went on eBay to find like party supplies that were still available. And I found some like tablecloths and plates. And then the rest of it was kind of just making it up on my own. So, I have a bunch of the like Twilight Barbies and the action figures and all
Wow.
those things. So I set them up.
It's
But
amazing.
I was like, oh, I need to also like have food. And I wanted it to be themed around the series. And so when I went back and I was like looking, I realized like, oh my gosh, there's actually like a lot of, for a vampire series, like there's a lot of food in
There's a
it.
lot of references to food.
Um,
Yeah, there
Mhm.
totally are.
yeah. So I had Italiano, we're making
Yeah,
Italiano for
you
you.
did.
And then we had like bloody punch, thinking of like the prom scene.
Mhm.
And it was only a few things at that time, but it kind of put the bug in my brain. And so at that point I was like, wait, I just want to like figure out how many more recipes are actually mentioned. And once I realized how many there were and how often I like to rewatch the movies with my friends, I mean, we love nothing more than to have a silly night where either we're watching one or we're trying to get through all of the movies. And also, I love to reread the books still. And there's something so cozy about being able to have something that is either in the series or kind of reminds you of it. And so that is where the idea was born to actually make this unofficial cookbook, because I think that all of us that love to be nerdy, we love nothing more than to immerse ourselves a
Right.
little bit deeper. I mean, I am the type of person that if I'm watching any, like even like 13 going on 30, I'm like, we need the razzles, like whatever it is. I love a good theme. So I knew I would not be alone with that. And I love the Twilight fandom online as well. I think it's such a fun community and we
Mhm.
all love to like make fun of ourselves, but still have these like beloved moments. And rewatching this series like over and over and over again is just part of that. And so I thought I cannot be the only one that is interested in having like a little themed cocktail night or a little themed dinner night.
No, absolutely not. I
Yeah.
the first thing I saw, I was like, that mushroom ravioli better be in here. And girl, when I opened the page and it was like the first thing, I
It
was like,
is.
this is legitimate. This is a legitimate cookbook. We know what we're doing here. And even that one was kind of easy. But then when I was like, do we have the fish fry? Because if we don't have the fish fry, we don't have a Twilight cookbook. And you got the fish fry. I was like, we are a
Right.
solid fan here. We know what we're doing. We're incorporating things that aren't just from the books and movies. We've got things in here that are different. I know Michelle noticed that too when we went through to review, because we're like, we're gonna meet Kayla. We want to get to know her story and her book, and we want to understand and like see where this
Mhm.
all is gonna tie in. And we're on this like deep Twilight dive right now, and so excited to cover this series. And you couldn't be more right that this is such, for me specifically too, as like a comfort series. It's something you can always go back to. You have the craziness of all the things in the world, but there's always Twilight. So you can come back and sit down with your friends, watch the movies, and I can put it on in the background, go do something totally different, and it's just like comforting. It's there. The soundtrack is comforting.
Yeah.
Reading the series is comforting. It's just that repeatable thing that it clearly, it really has. I think it's one of the series that has created romantasy now. I really believe that. I don't know if you would agree with me. I think that Twilight totally set the stage for the millennial generation to really inspire authors to go for romantasy, to go into these genres. Because Twilight, I don't even know if like romantasy as a genre was specifically like a thing even then. It was just there. It was just Twilight. It was just like a series. But I definitely feel like it was such a catalyst for where we are with book reading today, book talk, all that. I think a lot of it really stems from like this major fandom that we can attribute to Twilight. I just don't think there's any other fandom like it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I mean, I think, oh my gosh, when you look back and you see like the footage of the crowds just for like these book releases and the movie, like even like a Hot Topic release and those sorts of things, I mean, was and in my opinion remains to be this phenomenon that like is, I think it's had such an impact on romantasy. I think it's had such an impact on, you know, book to movie or book to TV show adaptations. I think it showed the world that, there were a lot of people, a lot of young women, a lot of women of all ages, people across the board, not just women, girls, women, people. I mean, everyone was craving this fantasy world, but not just fantasy. That romance aspect was so crucial and pivotal. And I think that it showed everyone this is worth paying attention to. This is worth, giving people more opportunities to make their own stories in this space. And time again, it proves to be true. We readers in this space, we just absolutely love to be immersed in these fantasy worlds. And, Twilight, it's part real world, part fantasy, right? I mean, a lot of the locations are so real. And yet just that like side world or underbelly of fantasy is so alluring. So then you have all these wonderful series that take place in entire other fictional places and worlds. I think you don't have the popularity of that without the Team Edward and the Team Jacob of it all.
Yeah. And speaking on
Yeah.
that, so we've had several people comment about going to Forks in September when the 20th anniversary like really starts to kick off. And I love this idea of food being a part of that culture and just the idea of taking something that's already comforting and then like level upping it. How can I make it even more comfortable? How can I make this even more of something that brings like people joy as they're enjoying it, enjoying the films, and make them feel even more immersed from home?
Like, I was not into Twilight when it first came out. I'm reading it for the first time. I've watched the movies before, but I'm reading it now for the first time. And like, I just finished Twilight this week. We just watched the movie today. Me and Danny sat down and watched it and loved the book. And like the entire time, Danny was like listening to me mumbling. I'm like, that wasn't in the book. That was in the book. The book did this. This was different in the book. So, and it was still like, I understand the cultural phenomenon of it. And I know it was crazy when it came out. Is still kids are going crazy over, everyone's going crazy over Twilight when it's coming out. But what I love about your cookbook is it's almost like an Easter egg. Like if you just watch the movies, some of these recipes, they look delicious, but it wouldn't quite click why it's there. And when I saw the enchiladas, I'm like, the enchiladas are there. Bella was cooking for Charlie like every night. And that was not in the movies. And I was like, that's part of the endearing part of Bella in the book, that she's like so caring. And
Yeah.
so when I saw all like the little Easter egg ones that are like just for the book, so you have both book and movie. So basically anyone, no matter what side, if they're just movie people or book people or that like they just love the Twilight culture, they would get all of these recipes. But you have a little bit of both, and I just love that. Can't wait to try all of these in any sort of way. And that kind of leads into a question I have. So at the very beginning of your book, you have like a quiz, a fun little quiz, which three main characters are you? And I just want to know, who is your character? And how did that inspire your cooking? Or how does that impact your cooking? How do you think that your character does that?
So, first of all, thank you for all of those wonderful things. And second of all, I love that question. When I was coming up with that quiz, I was like thinking back to the days of like Tiger Beat and, M
Yes,
Magazine. And yeah, so I am a Bella.
me too.
And I think that I love that. I
Think I
think
would be. But when I saw, I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely a Bella.
you never know. You have to take the quiz. It may surprise you. You never know. I think that the way that it's impacted me as like someone cooking is I want to be cozy. Like at the end of the day, I want to take care of the people that I have at my house and that I'm with. And above all else, I just want to feel kind of that like warm feeling you get in your chest when you get to pull like a soft blanket, that book you're so excited to be reading, and you get that mug of tea and there's rain outside. I mean, that's my idea of like the best Friday or Saturday night, honestly. And so I definitely bring that approach to my cooking. I want it to taste really good, but I also just want it to feel like the food version of a hug. And
I love that.
and I'm not unselfish. I want to feel that for myself, but I also really truly when I have my friends over, or when, my stepmom, my mom come to visit, like, and my sister, I want them to be able to feel kind of the excitement and the happiness that I feel for them coming over through the cooking. And I definitely feel like I have that aspect in common with Bella. Speaking to your point, she wants to take care in this instance of Charlie, and she wants him to have that experience of good cooking. She mentions in the book that her mom wasn't the best cook, and
No.
so
Her mom has her
she
issues.
actually has. Oh, yes. She has so much fun, though, with seeing how Charlie, begins to trust her in the kitchen. And you read her actually having a good time, like, oh, I'm going to try this recipe and see how, he reacts to it, because he's very much like her. And so he's very understated. So it's like such a win for her when she can tell that he really likes it. And I definitely have that in common. It's like, I'm going to be very quiet and subtle about it. Probably not, but I'm just, yes, internally when I can tell someone really likes it.
I love that. It's like a love
Awesome.
language.
Yes.
You fill their cup and it fills your cup also.
Absolutely, for sure.
I have a side question, because I always do. So you're starting your story in 2008. How does it feel being a part of this experience that is Twilight? You're now gonna, like, with this cookbook, like, enter other fans' homes with it. Like, this is a big deal. This is a huge thing to release this. This is very, very exciting. When does your book come out? If you could tell us that. And also, yeah, how does that feel kind of full circle?
So the book comes out on Tuesday, July 15th. And funny enough, that's actually my birthday. I swear that
Happy
was not planned.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that sort of just fit in with the overall absolute dream-like feeling of this entire thing. I mean, if you could go back in time to my 12-year-old self and tell her, like, show her this and be like, look, I think she would pass out. Yeah, she would be just in another realm. And I cannot tell you how many times I happy cried during
Amazing.
this process,
No.
like finding out that it was going to be published, and then, seeing the final recipe list all set up
Oh my
and done,
gosh.
submitting the final text, seeing the cover for the first time.
It's beautiful.
Oh,
The whole
I
book is
absolutely love
beautiful.
it.
It really is. Yeah, the
It's
photography is beautiful.
every
Ugh,
there's
it's
backgrounds,
gorgeous.
there's
Guys,
yeah,
this is
it's
gonna
just
look great. Even if you're not a cook, I just have to tell you, it's gonna look great on your book trophy shelf. Put it on there. It's beautiful.
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Oh God. That's like the
Thank
warm and
you.
fuzzies of that. It's just having something that you work really hard for. And like we found out, like, we get reached out to, like, hey, would you like to interview? I was like, I'm sorry. Yes. Yesterday, we would love to interview Kayla on our show. Absolutely. So for us to even be part of this journey is like, we feel honored to
Yeah.
have you here to talk about this. Like, a huge deal. It's great. And we're really excited for you. We can't wait to see where this
Thank
goes,
you.
and for people to try the recipes and see, everybody tag you and all that. Like, it's a very, very exciting thing. That's why I asked you that question, because I was like thinking on my own journey as a reader. And Michelle and I,
Yeah.
just as, like, we ran a book club a year ago, together, and had a hard time as moms, like, meeting up. And then we were like, we really, really love talking about books. And what if we just, like, did this? And so now for us to be sitting here interviewing an author of a Twilight cookbook is like, that's a massive thing for us. Like, that's such a thing. We are honored to have, like, it's a dream to see that happen. And so that's why I was like, let me ask her, what does this feel like for Kayla? Because here we are, just like fangirling. We're like so excited. I was like texting her, I was like, Michelle, we're interviewing a cookbook author tonight. And Michelle's the at-home chef. She is an amazing, amazing home cook. She really, really, truly is.
Thank you.
And you are. And so, like, we were both, like, just so excited to be able to tie this into, like, our whole Twilight coverage, and just the timing of it just, like, worked so, so well. And yeah,
It was meant to
quite
be
literally.
fated.
Right. It really was. It was fated. So we were really, really excited about that. And I have to ask you, what was your favorite of the recipes that you identify most with, or makes you feel the most cozy or most excited? What's that one for you in the book?
So I have a few favorites tagged, actually. I think, though, one of my favorites, because it kind of combines both the books and the movies. And that New Moon, funny enough, I am Team Edward, but New Moon is actually my favorite in the series.
Such a good one.
I just love it so much. And there is a birthday cake. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't spoil it now that you're reading it for the first time. I'm like so worried, but it's very important and pivotal.
Indeed.
For some disastrous reasons. But in the movie, it's not actually, it doesn't match the book description. And so in the book, it's a pink birthday cake, which is, I think, very important given what ends up happening with it, because it goes from this like very classic birthday image, Alice would do nothing less, to disaster. And I love the juxtaposition of that. And so my favorite is the mortal birthday cake, because we were able to do the pink version,
Nice.
which I just think is so fun. And with that raspberry in it,
Looks like blood.
Here is this birthday cake, y'all. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. For those who are listening, what's really great, other than just the recipe, because we could just stop there, right? You could have the mortal birthday cake. Here's your recipe. No. We go a step further. Kayla goes a step further with this. She gives you a blurb that references what this ties into. And then she even has a fun fact at the bottom of the page. And then she tells you like the full recipe's in there too. But you guys, the way that this looks, you need it on your shelf. It's a beautiful book. You need to have it when we have. And Michelle, I was thinking, when we do our event, wouldn't it be cool if we brought some of Kayla's recipes to our event that we're having with Authentic Books? I think that would be really cool.
That would be fun.
And then we could have folks try some of the recipes. Kayla, more to come there. We'll get some pictures and all that, because that's at the end of the month. But I think it'd be really cool. Like, this cake it looks beautiful. Yeah, I love
like the raspberries. That looks like blood. Even in the second picture, so there's a second page, because she has just so much detail with the backstory and facts and the recipe. There's droppings of the raspberry that's like blood splatter, and like that's just like a little detail that I love. That every recipe brings in vampires or just Twilight in general, and there's just minor details, and it's the finer details that just puts all these recipes like just top tier. So I love that attention to detail.
Thank you. I definitely wanted this to feel like a little bit of a, treasure hunt within the cookbook, because I just think so much of the fandom is finding those moments on your like 80th reread or your like 100th rewatch where, you're like, why is Emmett holding a Ziploc bag of eggs in the lunchroom? That doesn't make any sense. And then, that gets incorporated into one of the recipes in the cookbook, because it's this thing that like the whole fandom just has so much fun with, Mr. Molina's compost tea. That's not something that happens in the book, but it is one of my favorite funny moments in the movie.
Yes, we watched that
don't
today.
drink it. It's for the plants. It's so fun to be able to incorporate those little moments and to do it not just for the, movies, but for the books too. Even the non-silly ones, but the like sweet ones, like you were talking about. The enchilada recipe, I love putting that in there because I just thought it's one of my favorite Bella and Charlie moments. And so there's the heartfelt, Easter eggs too.
Yeah, I love that. I can't wait to try the enchilada recipe. I'll be honest, just because I was like, that was one of the moments for me. I'm like, oh, like she's experimenting, because I feel like in that moment she was trying to almost make up for the chaos that her mom was, because her mom tried to make Mexican food and it never really turned out appropriately. And he was very skeptical, and that was just kind of like a bonding moment. So with this, did you face any challenges when coming up with recipes?
Oh, absolutely. There were certain moments that I wanted to incorporate, right? And it was the challenge of what's the best way to represent these moments in the series in food or drink form. And, it was kind of an experiment process of like, oh, maybe it could like take this form, or maybe it could take that form. I mean, for example, the iconic red apple on the cover of the first book, definitely wanted to incorporate that, but that could have gone in so many different directions. I mean, it could have been a drink. It could have been something savory, even if we wanted to. It could have been incorporated in a salad, but ultimately landing on that beautiful puff pastry dessert seemed like the best way to do it justice. But yeah, it took trial and an error. And I think that it was those sort of open-ended moments that, you know, they weren't limited by being in the actual book or movie itself as its own recipe, where it allowed for more creativity, which was awesome. But sometimes having a lot of
Yeah.
choice is more difficult than having limited choices. And so that, I think, was an area where I was like, okay, this is a little bit hard. And then the other piece was there were so many places where I could find inspiration for recipes. You know, you have the main 4 books, you have all of the movies, but then you also have The Short Second Life of Brie Tanner. You have, you know, the anniversary edition, Life and Death, that's got the green apple on the cover. So there were all these other moments where I was like, I don't know, do we include something from that? And so also, you know, having to focus it and make sure it's cohesive and that you don't have too many things going on. I am definitely someone with struggles sometimes with reining it in.
I can relate to this
So
heavily. Too
that was
much.
certainly a challenge as well.
That's fair. I mean, there's a lot to take in with the books, the movies. The whole cultural phenomenon is just massive. So I can definitely see that being a challenge. The red apple tart looks delicious. I love it. Showcases the red apple perfectly. It's the heart of the dessert as well. So I think that was an amazing choice. It just looks beautiful.
Thank
I want to
you.
eat it.
I hope you will soon.
Me too. My husband has been saying that he is, because I'm home for the summer because I work in education. So I'm home for the summer. So I'm just cooking a lot. And he's like, honey. Yeah, no, he definitely has more recipes coming his way that he needs to taste.
Ooh, I love that.
Okay, so I have another question for you. How would you recommend readers go through your book in terms of, let's just say Michelle and I we're going to watch New Moon and then we're going to watch Eclipse back to back. What of your recipes would you think would be a good setup for that? And if you're starting out, we've never read your book, what first recipe would be good to start with? And then what kind of pairings would you think would be good?
Interesting. Well, I think it's going to depend, obviously, on, you know, if you're doing a movie watch party, are you doing all of the movies? Are you doing specific ones? Like New Moon and Eclipse, I think it would be really fun to focus in on recipes that specifically relate to those books and films. So I definitely recommend Emily's blueberry muffins that she makes for the
yeah.
wolves.
Good one.
They're really, really good. And also, like it's visually like you'll have it on your table and then you'll look at the screen and you'll have them right in front of each other.
Wow.
Which is super fun.
That's awesome.
And then I'm like, let me open up the handy dandy book so that I can remember all of the things that would work well for that.
I have another follow-up question because I'm the worst. And I'm going to add it in at the bottom, which is,
of course.
did you struggle? So the Cullens don't eat, right?
Yes.
Did you struggle with that piece of it? Because that's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, vampires don't eat, but we got a cookbook. But then it was like, wait a minute. Twilight has actually a lot of food, like a lot of food. There's a lot of food. There's a lot of drinks. There's a lot of references. But that was like something I thought of. And then I was like, I wonder if the author thought about that or like struggle with it. And so when I read your blurb, you mentioned that at like the beginning, talking specifically about how, yeah, the Cullens don't eat, like the vampires don't eat. But don't worry, there's plenty of food in this book. And I was curious, like you mentioned it and I thought of it. I was like, she knows. Kayla knows we're going to think about this because this is something like so out front. But I'll let you answer the first question. We can go back to that.
Absolutely. Yes, I do have thoughts on that. So I will return to that. But you also have, like, for New Moon, you've got, you know, Mike's protein shake. We got to get the protein in you. That's perfect for New Moon. There's a lot of just general wolf theme stuff in here. I did not neglect the Team Jacobs, the Team Seths of the world. Do not fear. So we've got, you know, the wolves in a blanket.
I love that.
I love that one.
The pigs in a blanket. The wolves
oh my gosh, I loved wolves in a blanket. Oh, I laughed. I loved it.
Making it fun. You know, we've got the Volturi vegetable minestrone. They make their iconic
Yes.
entrance in New Moon, so you can't forget that. We've got the La Push beach bite sandwiches, which
Yeah.
La Push is featured in
In
Twilight
one,
and New Moon,
but they're in
but
both, yeah.
it'll work.
Oh,
You know,
of
you can do
course.
it. You've got the bonfire chili dogs specific to Eclipse.
Mhm.
So that's a fun one to do there. I mean, a lot of these are specific to those moments, but what I think is so great is when you start to rewatch all of the movies, they kind of just become one thing, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
And
It's a saga
it
for a reason.
is the saga, right?
Mhm.
So I think a lot of these you can still, especially with, you know, the ones that relate to the first book, you can really interchange them in your movie nights.
Mhm.
But I was like, wait, I have to find, there's, you know, Personal Sun cocktail. That is a good drink option for a new moon and eclipse specific movie night because we're getting a lot of Jacob moments. And so
Yeah.
you're going to need your Personal Sun there to keep you comfortable and warm as you watch Bella interact with her personal son. And yeah, I mean, there's so many fun moments that are tied to the characters specifically. So even if it's not just for the movie that you're watching, you've got that Team Edward, Team Jacob representation for you.
That's awesome. Yes. Yes. Okay.
I love that. And you did mention earlier that you were Team Edward. Were you always Team Edward from the very beginning?
I'm a tried and true Team Edward from the very beginning. And believe me, in
Same.
2008, you know, I certainly felt the pressure to switch teams, you know. It was middle school for me, so it was a bloodbath in
Yeah.
many ways to be on
Oh
either
yeah,
side of the
cutthroat out
my
there.
my best friend was Team Jacob. It was very Romeo and
Oh.
Juliet style for us, you know. We were
That's
from two
funny.
opposing houses, but yes, I am Team Jacob, but or Team Edward. Oh, slip.
Ooh.
I am Team Edward, but I have a lot of appreciation for Jacob, especially as I've reread the series and I've gotten older. Specifically, New Moon Jacob. I just think that he is so sweet. And while I
He
am
really
Team
is.
Jacob, or again, I did it again. I
You're
am
Team
Team
Jacob.
Edward.
It's okay.
Oh my gosh. There's someone doing
The
witchcraft
internal
trying to change me.
conflict.
No, I am Team Edward, but I do have a lot of love for Jacob. And I definitely wanted that to come through in the cookbook because it's so fun that everyone has their different teams and it's like completely expanded. You know, you have people being Team Alice or Team Bella or Team Seth. I love that. I love
Team
that so
Seth.
much
Oh,
that
I love Team Seth.
there's so many great characters in
Mhm.
this series that like as the years have gone on, people like there are some people there where they're like, I'm reading this specifically for Alice, or I want to learn more about the Romanian coven. Like, I think that's so cool. But yeah, I am still to this day Team Edward all throughout the years.
I love
Okay,
that.
going back to
I
my
was-
Cullens don't eat question. I want to
Yes.
hit that one before we move forward.
So I actually think that vampires are so fun because even though they don't eat in the traditional sense, there's a lot of fun that you can have with recipes that, you know, have to do with blood,
Yeah.
you know, not necessarily real blood, but it does present the opportunity for some very fun combinations. But the Cullens specifically, they refer to themselves as vegetarian vampires. And so one of the recipes in here is vegetarian vampire tacos because you can't refer to yourself as a vegetarian vampire without some kind of fun recipe coming from that. And it's such a huge part of the Cullens and their story that we absolutely needed to include that. But I mean, we also had the opportunity to, you know, feature it in other areas. So we have the bloody beet salad. We have the blood orange chicken salad. So there's still a lot of fun
Oh
you
yeah.
can have with
Even the drink I
food
made
with
that was his
vampires.
venom.
Exactly.
I was like, that's a perfect, which I'm still sipping on, by the way. If you're not watching us, you can see it you can see it if you're watching us, but on those who are listening, I'm holding the glass because I'm still drinking it. I kind of made it more of a cocktail than just a shot, but you can have it as a shot or a cocktail. And yeah, that incorporates that type of the venom piece and all of that. So it's smart. It's very eloquently done how you've tied like these things into.
I love the
Thank you.
cherry pie vampire bite that has like the fangs and then the blood coming out. That's like visually, that was probably one of my favorite vampire-esque recipes that you have.
And even though in the Twilight universe, the vampires don't necessarily have true fangs, Bella does have a nightmare where Edward has fangs. Nightmare, dream, who's to say?
And I like too how you have like the garden burger, which is from the first Twilight movie.
Yes.
You have the golden onion, which is like a nod to the first Twilight movie where they win, the golden onion. So you have like these little things that are, if you didn't read all the books, that's okay. You're still going to enjoy what's on page. If you've just loved the movies, you're still going to find something in here that is relatable versus, oh, I've never read the book, so this cookbook's not for me. No, not true. If you've only watched the movies and you were a diehard lover of the films, or even just like to make fun of the films, but you still watch them because they're comforting, which sometimes we're in that camp. That happens. This book is still for you. It's still going to hit all of those different things. I think you did a really excellent job incorporating things that were not exclusive to either camp. So that's awesome. Kudos to you for that. Yeah.
I was very passionate about making sure this was something that anyone who's interacted with Twilight in any form can enjoy. My hope is that if you've only watched the movies, you're going to find so many fun things. If you've only read the books, you're going to find so many fun things. And maybe it'll convince you to watch the movies or to read the books if you haven't, if you've only done one or the other. But it's also for people who kind of love to hate watch it. There's funny references here. You can still have a good time if you are like the odd man out of your friend group who just loves to kind of, talk trash a little bit when the rest of your friends are doing their movie night. So there is truly an open door, welcome to all, let's just have fun energy that I wanted to bring to this.
Yeah, and I want to ask you a follow-up question on that. So I like that you brought that up, this love to hate, because there are quite literally influencers that have gone viral several times over and almost converted their entire account to this like love hate of Twilight. And I have to give it to the fans of Twilight who also truly love this and have embraced this because they understand the like kitschy quirkiness that has become Twilight over the years. And the fandom has embraced that, which is really cool because there's a lot of other fandoms. We won't name names, but there's a lot of other fandoms who may not enjoy, the pseudo haters, which I actually think the people that make these videos truly love what the fandom has done and like enjoy that it's hilarious. There's some that are just like so funny. So I was going to say to you, and I think you kind of answered it, but like the pop culture surrounding Twilight, how has it influenced you? And yeah, how has that impacted kind of what you wanted to build and do?
I love that question. And I think that for me, I think it's a little multifaceted in that I don't think you can be a Twilight fan without having, a sense of humor and the ability to, take a joke to some extent, right?
Oh, yeah.
Especially coming out of, being the age that I was when the movies were so popular. It was the go-to joke, like making fun of Twilight. I mean, there's a whole like parody movie about it. So, of course, when things like that, get to the level of popularity that they do, you're absolutely going to have that. But also, like, the material is rich. I mean, you have these like really quirky moments, especially in that first film, that every time I rewatch, I feel like I find something new, like, Eric being like, it's a worm. Yeah, the hacky sack. And
yeah, it's a
I
worm.
see
yeah.
like
and you're like, what?
a new observation all the time. And I love how much fun the fandom has with it. But I also love that there are these creators that like, are doing the best content where they're like, oh, the one, friend to Bella who is like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Or like, making fun of Jasper's pained expression the entire time.
All the time.
I love that. I think it's so funny. I think a lot of us have so much fun with it. So there's that aspect. I think also it has made me like a fierce advocate for women having fun and like just in general, like people in the reading space having fun
Mhm.
and having the freedom and the, happiness and to do all of that because there is the really fun aspect of the jokes. And then there can be, and this is more to do with the pop culture response in like 2008 and like all the way through all the movies being super popular. I just want readers to be able to have fun and for them to feel like it's not the most embarrassing thing in the world to say that they're a fan of this. And that is my biggest wish that I could, go back and advocate for my younger self who like started to like, take down all the Twilight posters and started to pretend not to like it because I was
Yeah.
afraid of that reaction. But what I love is I feel like that isn't happening, at least with Twilight specifically anymore. Like people are like, yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it has its silly moments. Like, I don't care if it's a little bit silly. I'm having a good time and I love it. And I love that that's the energy. And I
Yeah.
think that that energy is something that these creators also appreciate and love.
Oh, it's
I
like
think
cult
truly,
classic level. Like Twilight
yeah,
has now exceeded time. Like fuck the haters. I mean, in all honesty, because
exactly.
it has literally surpassed. People are still talking about this.
Yeah.
They're releasing 20th anniversary books. We're talking about it on our show. I mean, you cannot, everybody can come out of the woodwork and talk shit, but I kind of think of it as like, I'm sure in the 70s and 80s, there were so many haters of Star Wars, like when all that stuff came out and the people who
Yeah.
loved it. I know there
Yeah.
were. They were like, oh, that whole world's fake. How are you into that or whatever? And like
Right. Lord of the
that
Rings
fandom,
too.
Lord of the Rings, all of them,
Yes.
they've all experienced, why are you still into this or whatever? And it's like the folks that don't get it are just never going to get it. And they're just not part of the
Totally.
camp. And that's okay. You're not going to get it. But also, like, I just don't hear you anymore because you know what? The fandom
Yeah.
has spoken and look at where this is. I mean, there's just you can't, the numbers don't lie. They just don't. Like, the number of people that
Absolutely.
love this, it just, so honestly, fuck the haters. They're always gonna be there. And if anything, all that does is draw more attention. If they are gonna take the time to post about Twilight, it's it's still somebody posting about Twilight at the end of the day. So it's like, that's
That's
fine,
true.
And
It's
to
still
your point,
publicity.
I think truly that those creators that make that really fun content,
Hmm.
I know just based on the way that they interact with fans in the comments, like they love Twilight fans.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think they absolutely love Twilight too. So I think that energy where we're having fun and we're joking, I love it. Like I truly do. I think it is so fun. And yeah, it's just always going to be a thing. My dad told me, he loved comic books growing up and he would get made fun of for that. And now, Marvel is what it is and everyone loves
Right.
that. So
And who's talking,
it's
right?
just
Come on.
exciting. So with time, people get to, take it back out of the closet and have a good time with it. The nostalgia factor makes it even better. I think all of these things sort of, they get better with age.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree.
So, important question, very important question. Which book or movie was your favorite and why?
Oh my goodness. So when I first read the series, my favorite, without a doubt, was Twilight, book and movie when I was younger. And now over the years, my favorite book and movie has become New Moon, even though I am Team Edward. I find it to be the most, I know this is going to sound strange, and I don't know what it says about me, probably a lot, but I find it to be the most romantic. I just love the kind of mix of, tragedy and the way that it kind of mirrors Twilight, but in this like broken, fragmented way. There's so many moments that speak back to moments from the first book and movie, but, like in the movie, the meadow is dead now, or, you know, in the book, she can't find the meadow for a really long time. Jacob actually has to help her plot it out so that she can find it on her own. I love that aspect, but then also the near tragedy and the big reunion at the very end. It's just, oh
It's
my
epic.
gosh. Yes, it is epic. That is the perfect way to describe it. And I will never get over the movie scene of Bella running to Edward across that, the cobblestone steps in Italy and the clock towers chiming. I mean, it's just everything that I love in angst, but with happy ending. That's what I'm looking for. And I appreciate the like very obvious and like it's self-aware, the nods to Romeo and Juliet. I mean, they literally are watching it at the start.
And I believe the beginning there's a quote from Romeo and Juliet as well.
Yes.
Beginning of New Moon.
Yes. And I love that. I eat it up. I think it's so good. It's also the first time that we meet the Volturi, and I think that they are truly chilling. I mean, it's a lot to take in when they have that room full of humans brought in as they're leaving, and Bella's realizing, oh my gosh, like they are not going to be alive. And I think they are the big bads, obviously, in the end. And it is such a cool and like high stakes introduction to them.
Yeah, because in Twilight, you don't really know. It's interesting. Have you read Quicksilver? I'm just going to kind of segue very quickly to Quicksilver if you've read
I
it.
have not, but I have it on my list because I actually watched your recent episode about
you
it.
Bump it
up. I have that written down.
Yes, bump it up. And the reason we'll come back. We'll have you back on for something else, I'm sure, at some point. Ask you about this because
I love that.
So what we kind of theorize is like we haven't met the true villain in book 1 yet of Quicksilver because there's going to be 5.
Yeah.
And Twilight's like that. And I think that's where I get that idea from is like the Volturi are the true villain and you don't meet them in Twilight. You kind of get inklings, but you don't really know the Volturi in book 1. And so I think that New Moon, Twilight gives you like the opening, but New Moon gives you like, it's world breaking. Like you break open the world in New Moon. You really truly like understand. What I loved is you talk about in this cookbook, actually it's probably my favorite thing. And I referenced it because it's so good in the movies and it's so good in New Moon. I'm also team New Moon. It's one of my favorites. I love the whole series, but I keep coming back to New Moon and I couldn't figure out for the wildest time. I was like, I really don't know. I like all the books. I couldn't figure out which one was my favorite, but I do think right now I'm leaning more towards the New Moon camp. And what it is like the months where she has the blank pages. I can't get over it. I know. It's my favorite thing. I go back to it. I think about it in the movies. It's just the music with the pages in the music and the way they do it in the movies is just incredible. And then the way they do this on page, she only puts one word, and I remember reading that the first time, and I hadn't gone through like my first big heartbreak just at the beginning when I started reading Twilight, but like later I went through my first like biggest heartbreak I ever had, right? World ending, cataclysmic type thing. And those words on pages were the only thing I could think of like how to talk about the mental depression of having to continue to live through your day-to-day life that doesn't change, but still having to like, you just identify months at that point because everything else is such a blur. And her like writing that and identifying that, Stephenie Meyer, that was like it's dark, but it's like my favorite part of New Moon.
I mean, I resonate with that so much because I am a New Moon Bella defender. I think a lot of times it's easy to boil it down to like, oh my gosh, it's like a high school breakup. Like why the energy around it? And it's like, well, it's more than that. It's an entire future completely turned upside down. It's a family. It's a best friend. It's a love of her life. It's the plan for her life. And it was also, I think, one of the first times that, Bella starts doing things for herself, not for her mom, and love him, but not for Charlie, but doing what she wants, following her own heart, coming into her own. And she hadn't really done that up to that point. And so to have that rug pulled out from underneath her, I mean, and we know Charlie continued to, even at least at the start of Twilight, not handle Renee leaving him well. Like it continued to haunt him. And so I always defend that. But also, I was, 12, 13 at the time that I was reading that. And I did not have, experience with romance at that time. But I was going through a lot, and I was dealing with, a lot of, mental health issues at that time. And it was like, whoa, when I opened the pages and I saw those months going by, because I truly did feel like time had sort of shifted, and it was like both endless, like just so hard to get through each moment, but also a total blur. And I've never seen something capture that more perfectly than those just like super impactful month pages.
I haven't
And
seen
then
it
the
since.
concept of
And
waking
I've read
up. Yeah,
a lot since then. A lot.
absolutely.
And that still comes back to me as something different that she did that still resonates now, that
Oh,
people
yeah.
can buy
I
into
agree.
and
Right.
feel on another level. Yeah.
Well, and people
Yeah.
forget that as a teenager, when you have a true love, when you have a friend and something goes bad with that friendship, that was your world. Like that is your world,
Oh, yeah.
because as a teenager, your world tends to be so small, and you have hormones, and just teenagers feel so deeply that
Yeah.
when something like that happens, it is catastrophic. Your world literally just ended because that's what you're forming. And people tend to forget that. And
Yeah.
I've of course seen this in the movie, but I haven't gotten to that part in the book yet because I just started Eclipse
So
today.
ready.
I'm sorry, New Moon today. And
So ready.
it's just poetic from what I've heard. It seems
Yeah.
poetic in the sense of how you guys have mentioned this both slowing and stopping pacing of time with a
Yeah.
heartbreak.
Yeah, it's a lot. I'm really excited for you, Michelle. I feel bad that we've talked about it, but I also feel like it wouldn't matter because I think you have
I've
to
already watched the
experience on your own.
movies anyways, so it's not like it's a spoiler. I know the breakup happens. I know. So what I'm loving of having watched the movies and seeing the books, I just see that the books are so much more in depth than the movies. So there's more of I have
Yeah.
more of an appreciation for the books, and I'm just taking in whatever the books are giving me because I'm a literary person too. My background is in English literature. I just love reading. So I'm just eating up the books.
I'm so jealous of you getting to read it for the first
Right?
time. And I have to quickly ask, how did you react to the blood typing scene? Because it's not in the movie in Twilight.
Right, it's not in the movie. It's not
I
in the movie.
know.
So funny story. Because the blood typing scene, she like passes out and goes to the nurse's office, and then Edward appears because he was skipping school in his car, and she is like passed out or passes out, comes to. Edward convinces the nurse to just check her out for the day. I'm like, wait a minute. This man cannot do that. He is not on her list of adults that can check her out of school. So like I'm reading this, I'm like telling her, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Don't wonder why it's easy for people to get information from like the Forks High School. Like they have so many lawsuits coming their way. But as I'm reading it, because I have my perspective, I'm 31 years old, I'm a mother, and then my perspective of like, wow, as if I was reading this when I was like 13, 14, 15, I would have swooned over Edward. I would have been like, yes, check me out. Check me out. Take me in your silver Volvo anywhere. I don't care.
Yeah.
But as a 31-year-old, I'm like, girl, you don't know him. He's been absent from school more than he's been present. So,
oh my gosh.
He is not on your emergency contact list.
No, he's not.
But then wait.
And the nurse should know
you guys,
better.
you have to take yourself back to 2005, okay?
True.
There's barely internet. There's flip phones. And it's Forks. Population, 1,300 in the entire town. That's everybody. That's not the school. That's
still a lawsuit.
everybody. Okay, well, look, I'm just saying there's a little bit of leeway because you have to put yourself. Nowadays, I would never, ever, ever work. But like at that time, you could easily like come and go on school properly. It wasn't how it is now, where there's so much like, a history has dictated that needed to change. But at the time, there was a lot more fluidity to that, and it's more reasonable at that time than now. But now when you're reading it, I have to laugh because you're looking through a lens of like a mother. You're not looking through the lens of a teenager.
No.
And that changes things because you're probably immediately like, Team Carlisle and Charlie.
How dare you take my daughter?
Yeah, literally. Yes. And I honestly have a hard time relating to Renee now. As a mom myself, I read her line or like her storyline, and I'm just like, I get more frustrated for Bella than I already was before because I can't identify with Renee. And I identify with Esme's story. Esme's story is so intense, and I think that
It's
that's
so
like,
sad, and you don't get that in the book, in the movie.
or
That
even
she
Rosalie.
literally, yeah, like you don't
Love her.
get
Oh,
the
yeah.
depth of those characters. When I was reading Twilight, I'm like, Esme, she killed herself because her baby died like two days old, and I'm like, oh my god, that's so heartbreaking. And you're supposed to learn that in the baseball scene, but you don't learn that at all in the baseball scene. And yeah, like the book, the movies didn't do the book justice. I appreciate for the movies for being their phenomenon, and I think they're entertaining
Yeah.
as they are. I just think there's so much more depth to the characters in the books
Yeah.
that you don't get from the movies.
There's
I
so much
think
more depth
Twilight-
to Edward and Bella,
go ahead.
too.
Yeah.
Oh,
but I
sorry.
think with Twilight, they were
She's
working
funny.
with such a low budget. Yeah, but they're working with such a
Right.
low budget. And I think back to what you were
True.
saying, Kayla, earlier, which was there was not budget for this type of stuff. People didn't think anyone cared about it. Nobody thought that this was going to be what it was in 08. Nobody ever thought. Catherine Hardwicke, who was at that time one of the first mega female directors ever. This is
Yeah.
2008. That's not that long ago. That's embarrassing that she was like one of the, I mean, that's sad. It was mostly male directors. Nobody wanted to take
Yeah.
Twilight on. No one thought it was going to do anything. They kind of thought of it wasn't going to be anything. And here we are 20 years later, still talking about it. And I think that the first book, to even become a movie, they had to cut so many of the things that the fans beloved in book one to just make
Yeah.
the movie more entertaining, quote
Right.
unquote. Because they just didn't think that the wider audience would go, whatever that means, because it didn't matter anyway. But like, they didn't think the broader audience, quote unquote, would go watch this movie. Which, boy, were they completely wrong. But I think that does make me that made me love New Moon more, because I feel like budget was there from New Moon. Budget was there
Oh,
for,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you can see the shift. You can tell right away
Oh yeah.
the difference
missed the
between
blue
movie
tint.
one.
I love the blue
blue-
tint. I know.
The blue tint's gone from New Moon.
Some people don't love it. Some people absolutely love it. I have
Iconic.
so much nostalgic joy over that blue tint.
Mhm.
I think that the first film captures, to me, how I imagined like the environment of Forks. Like
Yeah.
the blue tint,
Agree.
even though that's like not realistic, there's something about it that like places me in that rainy, supernatural space. It creates that world for me in a way. And so there's so many scenes that I wish could have been in it that weren't. There are choices that I enjoy now that I've, gotten to kind of find like a joking appreciation for it. But yeah, I think that it would have been cool to see a more book accurate version of the meadow scene. And yet I still have so much appreciation for those little quirks. So I do think there's something fun that came up out of it. But I did want to say, if you're looking to get even more sad, if you haven't read, there's two things that I would recommend reading. So there's Midnight Sun, which is, of course, Twilight from Edward's perspective.
Right.
And because it's from his perspective, he's also reading the minds of everyone around him, except Bella.
Mm.
And so you get some more details on some of these people's tragic backstories. But also the official illustrated guide has a bio for each of the characters. And you'll learn even more like heart-wrenching details about like Esme's background, for instance. And yeah, that's where you get to dig in a little bit deeper, even on Charlie's story with Renee, and it won't make you like her anymore.
Yeah, she was already not on my
it's
list
so
of
hard.
likable characters, but
And I agree. That's a rough one. And in Midnight Sun, you actually hear from her mind, because Edward meets her obviously at the end
Right.
in the hospital. And yeah, it's just like, oh my gosh, that's a lot.
I haven't read Midnight
Um,
Sun yet. It's the only one I haven't read of all of them. And I remember the
I love it,
chaos.
but-
So I'm sure I will. I just remember the chaos surrounding the accidental leak back in the day.
Ooh,
There was
yeah.
like a whole thing with that. And then it re-released in 2020, right? Officially released in 2020. Okay.
Yes.
So like I hadn't caught up yet. I was still in an early, we were trying to have my son at that time. I had my son in 2021. I had taken a break. I was in that camp of like people who took a break from reading and then came back to it. That's where I was. And I started with a couple different books that kind of led into that were like just novels. I was reading a couple different things. I started with like Colleen Hoover and stuff like that before I really like got back into it. But I have not read Midnight Sun yet. So I'm very, very excited because that's going to be a new read for both of us. So at the end of all of our coverage, our last week of coverage is going to be Midnight Sun. I'm excited to tie both Michelle and I's experience of not reading it into the final overall thoughts of it. But that bring us to our next like last question, which is, what are you currently reading?
Okay, so I do have an extremely long to be read list of books, but the one
Same.
that I'm about to start as soon as it's available is The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy by Bridget Knightley.
Okay.
It's the first in a duology, enemies to lovers, like supernatural book series. So
Ooh.
I'm really excited to
That sounds good.
read that one.
Love a good enemies to lovers.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I can't make a review or recommendation yet because I haven't read it yet, but that's one that I'm like gearing up. You know, I'm getting my perfect tea mug ready. I'm
Yeah.
getting the reading spot ready.
Oh wait. Okay. Are you
but-
physical book, Kindle reader, Audible? What do we read? What's our style?
So with fiction, I like to start with print, like physical.
Okay.
And then for my favorites, which most of the books that I read end up being favorites, I then like to listen to the audiobook because for me, it kind of feels like a little movie adaptation, a little bit. And I love audio. So that's for fiction. And then for nonfiction, I have for years really actually struggled to read nonfiction. And so I listen to those on audio because it's like
Oh.
listening to a podcast for me.
Okay.
And so I've actually really been able to get into nonfiction that way.
Okay.
That's fair.
But yes, I have to for my favorites in fiction. I need the hardcover, and then from there I expand. And I also tend to also get my favorites on ebooks so that I can have it wherever I go for a fun reread. But I
Heck yeah.
unfortunately for all the people who helped me move last year, I am certainly a hardcover collector and also a multiple edition collector.
Oh
You
boy.
need your trophies. You need your book
Yeah.
trophies.
I do. I really do. So I have. I think I made a TikTok. Actually, I did. I made a TikTok where I just showed the sheer volume of different versions of Twilight that I own in hardcover.
Wow.
And then, of
I'd love to
course,
see
there's
that.
the anniversary editions coming. So
Oh, yeah.
How many?
I'll have even
Wait,
more.
how many
Those.
volumes do you have?
Oh my gosh. Off the top of my head. So I have my first copy that I ever read, and it's like so damaged, but I had to keep that. I have a special edition from the time that it came out. I have volume 1 and 2 of the graphic novel versions of Twilight. I have the 10-year anniversary edition from 2015 that's got Twilight on one side, and then on the other side is Life and Death, the anniversary version. And then I have the white box set that came out with the cover. So I also have that version. And those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Oh wow.
But honestly, it's possible that I have more.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Gotta
Michelle
collect
and I
them
just
all.
recently went to we recently went to a used bookstore, which was a really cool experience, and they had like this
I
whole
love that.
section of special edition books like encased that people bring in, and so it was really cool. It's we right now we went and got like the paperback and stuff like that, so of Twilight of this one, and I already had these. I had all of them except for Midnight Sun. That's the only one I didn't have. So Michelle bought all of the ones for the first time, and then the new box collection for 20th anniversary looks beautiful. They look so good.
Beautiful.
They do. They look
So
really,
gorgeous.
really beautiful. So we might have to have those because if we're covering, I feel like at this point now, if I'm spending quite a bit of time on this series. I think we need to have them. I'm just saying. If anyone wants to send them to
If
us, we won't be upset. Just put it out there. Throwing
If you
that right out
haven't
there.
seen the specific edition for Twilight, like not the box one, but the anniversary one for Twilight, if you are a Pride and Prejudice fan, I don't know for sure that was the intent, but it reminds me of some of the special editions for Pride and Prejudice. It's super gorgeous. It definitely leans into more of the like Regency romance side that Twilight is inspired by versus the vampire side, because it's in like this beautiful like pink and emerald. It looks stunning. So that was certainly in my cart. But the box set was just so gorgeous. I couldn't say no. I had to order that one as well.
We have to pre-order it. I mean, that's what it is. These things happen and they end up in the cart. You know, they just do.
What can you do?
We get it. Yeah. Well, Kayla, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah.
For real. Amazing. We've loved
I have had
having
so much
you.
fun. This
Good.
was any excuse to talk about Twilight, but especially with fellow book readers, like we get it, we love it, and it's just about being able to immerse yourself in that fantasy world and have so much fun. But it's made even better when you can come out of it and then like have these really fun and engaging discussions and have such a good time. So I truly, this is a great way to spend an evening chatting through all of our favorite moments and thoughts on Twilight.
Thank you. Everyone who's watching, go out and get Twilight, the unofficial Twilight Saga cookbook by Kayla right here.
On the 15th.
And July 15th, it's going to be available. So make sure you go get that. Go check out all the stuff that goes on with that.
I cannot wait to dive into this recipe, any of these recipes. Hopefully next time we chat, I will have sampled the majority of your book.
I am so excited to hear your thoughts, truly.
Of course.
Yeah, we can't wait to take some footage. I'm really excited, so it'll be great. And thank you again, Kayla, for coming on. We'd love to have you back. If you'd like to come back for more book talk, we would love to have you here. And we've just really enjoyed our time with you.
Thank you. I would absolutely love that. I have had such a great time, so count me in.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget that Kayla's book comes out July 15th. Make sure you snag yours. You can get it. I saw it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble has an exclusive red edition of the cookbook. So we're so excited for Kayla, and we can't wait to see the success brought from this book. And also...
Yes. It's beautiful, guys.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. It's beautiful.
There's so much detail.
I love it.
In this book, there's, the inside cover... There's the stories that she adds to the recipes.
Yeah.
It's just everything's so thought through. Like she just paid attention to all the little details. It's a phenomenal book. And on July 31st, we are hosting our Twilight murder mystery event. And you may or may not see some of these recipes made by yours truly at the event. So make sure you...
And yours truly.
And yours truly. Both yours truly. The link for that goes live next week, so make sure you pre-order your tickets in advance because it is limited ticketed.
Very limited ticketed, just like our really successful Quicksilver murder mystery event, which was our first ever event. And this again is, connected with Not Just Cakes, who's our favorite cookie maker in all of the Orlando area and the world beyond. And all the planets too. And we love her. So she's going to be making some really cool Twilight cookies for our event. So we're super, super stoked about that. And then we have a theme for this event. And the way I'm excited about our theme. So let me first talk about Quicksilver before I talk to you about that. I wanted to say thank you to Garage Craft Studio, who may or may not have a future hand in some of our items that we give away in our next event. But look at these cups. If you guys haven't seen the cups, we showed them on our Instagram, but they're really cute. They're stainless steel. They're awesome. They have our branding on them. They came out really, really great. And we got to watch. She posted a repost of her process, which was really, really cool to see how she crafted our cups for us. So again, just a quick shout out to Garage Craft Studio and the beautiful cups that they were able to make for us. So thank you again. You can hear the ice in the background on the cup for that because I'm trying to show everyone visually what that looks like. But if you haven't seen our socials, you can check that out too. For Twilight, what's really exciting, if you're in the Orlando area, we're going to be doing this again at Authentic Books on July 31st. The theme drumroll please, is emo 2000s. And the way I am so freaking excited about this, of course, this ties also into our bar that's part of our drinks of the episode for this whole coverage, which is Cocktails and Screams, because they have an entire like emo, band that comes out to their bar, and like they're totally like coded for early 2000s emo vibes. But it is what I'm really excited about for covering Twilight is that we're going to have the costume theming will be your best vampire self, whatever you want to do for that, but also early emo 2000s vibes, which is me so coded. Oh, I'm so excited.
I can't wait to
bring
get the
this back.
fringe bangs again just for the event.
Listen, I don't know yet how I'm going to do it, but I'm really excited for what I'm going to put together, and we'll have to definitely do another video clip and more to come there. So definitely wait for that link to pop up. Very, very, very limited tickets for this. We make these events super intimate. We can't wait to do another one. Thanks again. Shout out to Authentic Books for partnering with us on this event. So now it is time for our mystery Q&A. These questions have not been shared with us prior to asking. Oh, and final plug. Thank you, Kayla, again for coming on the show and sharing your book with us. We loved having you. So, Michelle, I'm going to hit you with a question. Speaking of early 2000s, my question for you tonight is, what kind of phone did you have in the early 2000s? Because like there were a lot of choices. It's not like today where there's a few choices today, but like back then there were like a lot. So what was like your first phone? And then like what was like your favorite type of phone? And were they the same? Like what did you have? I'm curious.
Okay, so my very first phone was like one of those brick Nokias. Very first. It was had a blue cover.
Which one?
I don't even know. It wasn't. It's not like, oh, I have the iPhone.
Was it clear
16,
where you
whatever.
could see like the inside?
No,
of
no.
It, or was it just like a brick?
It was a blue cover with silver backing. It was like a brick, and you just flip it.
Oh, I remember
and, like,
those. Yeah.
And you had to like, use not your keyboard, but use the numbers and the way.
The numbers.
Like it was such a flex if you could type text so fast. Like my keys.
I remember
had,
that.
like,
Yeah, because you had to use both
thumbnails.
fingers too.
Yeah. I would like destroy my keyboards because I would have like thumbnail imprints on like the keys that I use the most.
Yeah.
But my favorite phone, which was like more mid 2000s, was it was like a Sidekick, but it wasn't a Sidekick. It was called a Backflip, and it was the AT&T brand of the Sidekick. Like, the Sidekick, you could like flip the screen out and it would like twist up. The screen was the keyboard was on the back, and I would just flip it up, and it was like a whole big keyboard by itself and like a screen by itself.
How did you?
So it was like,
did you put the phone in your purse? Did you have like a clip to the waist?
This was before people had screen protectors. These things were like indestructible. You just toss that shit everywhere. It was definitely in the bottom of my big ass purse that I would lug around everywhere because I was, in 7th grade. So why would I not have a big ass purse that carried all of my Bath and Body Works spray and sanitizer? So yeah, that was my favorite phone. I never got a Razor. I don't know why. I never did. I know they were really popular, but I never got a Razor, and I didn't get an iPhone until.
Listen, Razor.
I was like,
that was
out of high school.
The thing to have. Oh my god. Oh, you didn't have what?
I didn't have an iPhone until I was out of high school. I wasn't like one of the first iPhone.
It wasn't me neither.
Okay. What was your first and favorite?
So my first phone was this, I was going to say piece of shit, but actually it did what it was intended to do. So I can't really be that mad at it, which was like this literal brick Nokia. But mine was, the reason I asked yours if it was clear, I had like the white clear case.
Okay.
Which at the time was like a flex too, because like anything clear cased at that time.
Because you can see all the technology
see, like, the
in it.
Was like,
I had the clear
like
Game
that kind
Boy
of stuff.
That was cool.
You did?
I had the clear Game Boy.
Remember the N64 controller that was like
purple
that was
and purple
clear?
and clear? Yep, that's exactly it.
I had that. Yes, because this was a vibe. This was a total, like, I loved that. Anyway, so my first phone was like that Nokia gigantic, like, brick looking thing that could easily be used as a weapon. Like, this thing was solid. It wasn't going anywhere. You could easily beat the shit out of somebody with this phone. It had an antenna. I never used the antenna,
they don't have
but it had a little tiny, they don't have them anymore. They
and
used
you
to
can
have like an antenna.
Them.
Yeah. The antenna used to extend out, and I never used it because it was like even really like lame at that time. I remember it like nobody pulled the antenna out to like use it, but it didn't. It had one, and so I remember that was like my very first phone. And then the phone I loved that I got multiple versions of was the Razor. I had a Razor, and this thing broke on me all the time.
'Cause it
It
was
would
so
drop
thin.
calls in the middle of the conversation all the time. I remember it would literally die. I would have that thing on the charger for hours. I would go out, go to the grocery store, go to the tanning bed, don't ask. I would go to wherever in college, right? And then like halfway through my shift as a server, that thing would be dead. And I'd be like, bitch, I just charged you. We had this conversation. Like, what is going on? But phone had all the ringtones you could imagine, because you used to like have to pay for ringtones back in the day, and like you could get them downloaded onto your phone, and like it was like there were no apps or nothing like that, but like you could assign ringtones to people. Yeah, it was a time. And I had a red Razor, which I don't know if you remember Project Red, but it was for like the AIDS Foundation. They were like raising money, and they used to have like, and so I didn't want the pink one because I was like everybody had the pink one, and then I didn't want like the black one. I don't know, but when they had the red one come out, I was like, oh, not a lot of people have that
You're
one.
different.
I want that one. And then I had that one. Yeah, I was different. And I was like, I need to have the red one. There was something about it. And so that was my favorite phone. I don't know if it's still my favorite phone. I feel like that's like the satisfaction of closing that Razor.
Like when you were mad at someone.
It's also probably why it didn't work, because the way I would slam the shit out of that phone, I would just be like, bam. Like it was cathartic closing that phone. The whole thing was a vibe. I miss it sometimes. It also never worked, so it would be very frustrating now as a mom to have that piece of shit.
And your pictures were like 0.5 pixels. Like they were
but they have the new Razor, and sometimes I'm like very like, I don't know. I feel like I might want one. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, I have the iPhone, of course, because everybody, I couldn't do Android, and offense to the Android folks, but I was like not smart enough to figure all that extra buttons out. I just wanted the simple, give me the most basic shit, and Apple was it for me. But I loved my Razor. That thing is so nostalgic for me. I enjoyed the shit out of that crappy phone, and it wasn't even crappy because of its own making. It was definitely user error, and just the way that I just like, to your point earlier, through that shit, that thing there was no case on that. I literally,
cases,
oh my god, I used to just, that phone got destroyed so many times.
That's fine. But phones were cheap back then, so it was okay.
Oh, it's
your
totally different
phone was like
thing.
less than $100, so it's okay to like buy a new one. Not the phones nowadays; they're like $1,500-$1,600.
Yeah, there was no down payments or any of this foolishness. They used to give them away. When you go sign up for a phone, they'd be like, free phone when you sign up.
Exactly.
Yeah, not anymore. That doesn't happen anymore.
No, they're too expensive. There's too much technology.
Now you get lucky if they'll like let you trade them in for something. Maybe.
Well, remember, because those phones were different, and then when the iPod came out, you had like two separate devices. So you had like the phone, which would do the texting, which if you didn't have enough texting, like if you didn't have a limited texting, you had to like, I remember distinctly being like, I don't have any more text, stop texting me. Like to people.
Or like it's not after 9, like I don't have free minutes right now. Please.
No, don't.
It's not after
unless
9.
it's an
Don't
emergency.
Call me.
And even if it is, like, it didn't matter. Like, most people in emergencies, like, now, like, you have to have your phone on you or in case of an emergency. But if there was an emergency, you would just have to run somewhere. Like, people didn't have cell phones as readily
and you'd have
anyways.
to, like, talk to a stranger. No. You'd have to, like, definitely talk to a stranger or whatever. Yeah. It was definitely a thing where...
It was a time.
The house phone was still a thing. People still had house phones back
Get
then.
off the internet so I can make a phone call.
Oh, yeah.
I remember my dad distinctly being like, get off the internet. I'm waiting for a call. Nowadays, like, that's not a thing.
No, none of those things are things. But they were, like, forced you to communicate more, whereas I feel like the cell phone actually, even with kids now, it's a lot more isolating. You don't have to ask for as many things. It's just always there. And it's become so much of an easy access thing that I don't know that if it's good or if it's crippling, or maybe it's both. I guess both things can be true. Yeah.
Yeah. Two things can be true at once.
Yep.
All right. So my question is, 2000s Danny, What was like your Burton
Oh.
CD?
Oh. Okay.
You list a couple of songs.
I definitely. Yeah. So I love Taking Back Sunday. So I could very easily I would have some obscure shit on my random ass. Yeah, I would have like Linkin Park, Taking Back Sunday, Lil Wayne, Lil Jon,
Yeah.
And the East Side Boys,
Yeah.
3-6 Mafia, all on the same mixtape. They would all
That's
coexist together. It would just be this mashup of like, how the hell did y'all show up at the same place? But they'd be there, and you'd have a little Destiny's Child floating along in there, some Britney Spears. You're going like, how the hell did these all? Yeah, they would all be up on the mash. And I also loved Korn. I mean, let's bring it back to Eminem. I definitely had Eminem on there. Limp Bizkit, you name it. Those at that time. I will say I was not a huge Fall Out Boy fan. That was not my jam. I did Fall Out Boy, but they were not
Fall
my
Out
favorite.
Boy. Pete Wentz was like, I loved Pete Wentz. Oh my god, it was such a scandal when his like nude was released. Such a scandal.
Oh my god. Yeah, what was on yours?
I mean, it was pretty. I would say pretty similar. So Fall Out Boy, obviously, I love the Killers.
Oh,
There's like
the Killers.
Some like.
Did you like AFI?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay,
not as much.
Yeah,
the Gorillas.
And
then obviously Destiny's Child, TLC, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Backstreet Boys, 98 Degrees. All of those mixed in. Lil Wayne.
LFO.
Yeah, Lil Wayne. Yes. And
I remember Weezer too.
Snoop Dogg,
Weezer was big.
Yeah. Like listening back to like what my songs
Foo Fighters.
Yes, Foo Fighters. I listened to a lot
All
of
American
rap.
Rejects.
Soulja Boy.
Yeah.
He was a phenomenon.
That was later.
Yeah, that was later 2000.
Soulja Boy was later. That was later 2000.
I was in middle
still
school.
Mid to late.
I was in middle school when he came out in 2007.
Oh my god, we're looking this up. I need to know. No.
Yeah, it was 2007. I remember because I was on the basketball court at school. It was lunchtime and we were outside and people were doing like the Soulja Boy dance. It was like 2007.
First of all,
maybe
he's
2008.
only 34 years old.
He was like 15 when he came out with this stuff. It's like 2007,
Was it really?
maybe 2008.
Oh my god, he was that young?
Yeah, he was young.
It was 2007.
Yeah, I was in middle
Crank
school.
That. And he's only 34.
Mm-hmm.
What? He was really young. I didn't realize how young he was.
T-Pain was like an icon.
Oh my god, T-Pain.
Oh,
listen.
Auto-tune.
T-Pain shaped my college years. That was later though. Okay. So that was our initial
later.
mixtapes.
He wasn't later. I
For
promise
you, he was later for me.
Okay.
He was. T-Pain was great though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I will say. Usher. Oh my god.
Yep.
The original, when it started like coming back out around again, it was in the Super Bowl, however long ago. I was like, listen, that was part of my childhood. It's coming back around. Can't believe that this song is that old, but okay. Great questions of the episode. Looking forward to more of these. That was a great trip down memory lane. We might continue this trend for the rest of our mystery Q&As for Twilight, because this could be fun.
All right. And before we wrap up, in our episode, we did cover the comparisons between the books and the movies. Obviously, there's so many differences. If you want full, like, comprehensive deep dive of that, there are plenty of Reddit threads, there are blogs, there are podcasts that go into the pure differences of that, because there's way too many to count. So if you're looking for that,
all night, honestly,
we would be.
Yeah.
We just hit the key ones for us specifically, and even then, there's still more. So now let's talk about what's coming up next in Book Club After Dark.
Yes. So next week, we're going to dive into New Moon by Stephenie Meyer. Hit the subscribe button or to hear more of our exciting book talk. And we're looking forward to dissecting this novel and movie with you. We are also going to have 2 more special guests, which we're really excited for, to talk New Moon, and they might be hysterically funny. So we hope you will join us for that episode and also for another drink of the episode from Cocktails and Screams. So more to come.
And don't forget, we want to hear from you. If you have thoughts on Twilight or suggestions for future reads, drop a comment below or message on one of our social media platforms at Book Club After Dark Pod. Show us your fan art, theories, or anything bookish you'd like to share.
You can also visit our website, bookclubafterdark.co, and to stay up to date on our cozy content and check out our merch.
That's all for tonight. Sleep tight, night owls. Until next time, happy reading.